Hello, my friends, and welcome to the Nature Zone. I'm your host, Nature Chad, and this is part 2, or actually part 3, of the episode with Letters from the Ruins. If you listen to the first part, you'll know that we talked about many important topics about faith, about religion, about the philosophy of life, about having kids, about being a father. Why should we even be motivated about having kids in nowadays, in this time? But still, a great conversation. And this one is more about nutrition, about training, about supplements, about being, feeling better, elimination diet, parasites, amazing topics, and you'll see why this episode is this long, because it's filled with great information. So I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you soon. Much love. Oh man, I was during the talk, I was getting kind of even emotional at the times, because I was just thinking like how beautiful it is, man. The God's love and everything, honestly, I just got emotional at some points. But anyways, let's talk about just like from the last time we talked a bit about training and stuff, but tell me what's new with you, in that sphere, about your diet, about taking care of yourself, about maybe even some holistic things about, you talked about bee pollen, you talked about ashwagandha and stuff like that, about these natural things that are helping you in your just general life, energy, but also in the performing in the gym, performing at your job and everything.
Yeah. So recently I've been getting more and more into supplements, more for purposes other than training. I guess for a long time, I have extreme levels of control over my diet. I'm very good at avoiding certain foods, avoiding certain things, and also including certain things. But I've mostly done that for the purposes of training, making gains, stuff like that. But there's other things in life which you can put diet, first of all. And I've learned many things about diet, as time goes on. I think when it comes to supplementation, I've been trying to optimize, various hormones and also avoid certain other hormones, of course. And the way I've been doing that is basically trying to make my sleep as perfect and as good as possible. I think that sleep is really the center of everything. It's not controversial, but
Yeah, I agree.
it should be, because no one's sleeping enough. No one's sleeping properly. You're on your mobile phone before you go to bed. I'm on my mobile phone before I go to bed. Everyone is, and I think that's kind of unavoidable. But whether you get 8 hours sleep or less is ultimately something that everybody needs to be concerned with, especially if you care about recovery in the gym, but not just because about recovery in the gym, also because of literally paying attention to your life and being capable of dealing with life itself. You need to be sleeping enough, and there are certain supplements that can help with that a lot. So I've always believed that magnesium is really important. I've probably taken magnesium supplements the most over the last 3 or 4 years.
Same.
But I kind of forgot a few things about magnesium, which is namely that not all magnesium is created equal. Some magnesium does not cross the blood-brain barrier, which means that it will have effects on your muscularity and your muscle recovery. It will prevent spasms, and it will prevent certain soreness because of the fact that basically you get enough salts in your bloodstream, which can then fuel your muscles. And if you don't have enough salts, especially magnesium, potassium, and calcium, and sodium, of course, you actually will not perform well enough. And so salts are really important, but magnesium doesn't just go to the muscles; it also goes to the brain, and the brain needs a lot of magnesium because the brain is a very, very blood-hungry mechanism. It needs to run, and so magnesium will get into the brain even if you're having normal supplement like a magnesium oxide or a magnesium citrate. But the problem is basically there are certain benefits to your brain chemistry, and also it's neuroprotective to have magnesium in your synapses, essentially. And you can get that by having magnesium bisglycinate, or what's the other one? There's another one. It's
I think magnesium taurate.
Threonate is the name, I think. That one will actually get into your brain. And my dreams have been crazy recently. I've been sleeping so much better. I've also been trying other supplements like tryptophan. I think the better version of that is 5-HTP, because tryptophan converts quite slowly and into the blood, and also protein is digested before tryptophan. Basically, I've been learning a lot about other things other than fitness, which are related to health.
Yeah.
So yeah, I've been taking tryptophan, the valerian root I've been trying. Also been swapping out certain things in my tea because I want to avoid like fennel, for example, because it can be estrogenic. And then there's other things, like I've obviously been trying to increase my testosterone. I think everyone is.
Testosterone is a mindset.
Yeah, it's a mindset. But at the same, there's a basic.
I agree, brother. I agree.
And there's certain foods which I prioritize. I've been having a bit more rocket recently. Americans call it arugula.
Arugula, yeah.
Arugula is good, so I have a lot of that actually. I was avoiding green vegetables for a very long time because of the fiber content, and also the fact that basically spinach is completely destroyed with
and not only that, but it's so easy in our circle to see so much hate about the greens, but that's just not the way it works, it's all marketing scheme. Honestly, people are promoting their own thing and then try to shit on other foods. But yeah, go on.
I mean, I know a lot about nutrition now, and I also know about pesticides in agriculture. And I know that lots of greens are completely nuked with pesticides. Even the organic ones are they use organic pesticides because of the fact that they're overground. And so I do understand the desire to avoid most greens, but not all greens, as I'll say, they're not created equal. I would say that spinach is pretty bad for the most part. If you can get an organic spinach, maybe one that is locally grown, which hasn't been completely nuked with pesticides, you're in a pretty good position. You could have that, still cook it because it's got oxalates. But there's other things like beans, which I still completely avoid, pulses, I can completely avoid, and there's some things which I just don't agree with. And I think the thing I've learned about nutrition recently is that there are certain foods that will agree with you and certain foods which will not agree with you.
Well, absolutely, yeah. For example, beans. For me, sorry to interrupt you. Beans, for example, for me and my family and everyone, like we handle them so well. I don't even fart from them, because I'm so well adjusted to it. And of course, by knowing something, I will take vitamin C or oranges with beans just to avoid too much iron in my blood that's not absorbed. So it's just a bit adjusting, but I can still enjoy my traditional food,
Yeah, that's really good. And the thing with the vertical diet by Stan Efferding, I think it's a good diet. I follow it fairly closely, though I use potatoes a lot more than I use rice. I don't have much rice. I've actually had no rice in like weeks. I had one time because I wanted to cook quickly, but I have potatoes a lot more. But rice is fine. But the thing is, the Stan Efferding vertical diet is great for athletes, but you can include certain things like coffee. It's quite an exclusive diet, and it cuts a lot of things out. And I think it's important to find what agrees with you. For example, he doesn't have onions and garlic. I think onions and garlic are completely fine.
The key for kitchen.
Literally the center of diet, but also they have so many benefits to them, especially if you cook them properly and you prepare them properly. And there's many vegetables which you can have, which are, if prepared properly, will be completely fine for your diet. And in my opinion, the problem with the vertical diet is that it's the vertical diet, whereas there are certain foods that there is no purely bad food, and there are some I would say that soy is a pretty purely bad food. But even when managed properly, when fermented, for example, like natto, is actually a good thing. So even beans, when properly treated and properly fermented and managed properly, will actually be a good thing in your diet. Cabbage is not great if it's sprayed with pesticides, but maybe sauerkraut is really good. So there's examples like that. But everyone has, in theory, a vertical diet. That's what I think is a better solution to that, which is you try to limit the foods that you eat and only really focus on the foods that you're very good with digesting. The problem is that Stan Efferding's vertical diet will not be the pure vertical diet in metaphysics. There will be differences as to how you digest certain foods. Some people will not take red meat as well. I think most people should still be having red meat because it has amazing benefits. But some people will just not digest it as well. Yeah. Some people will react badly to it. Yeah. It's even raw dairy. Some people react quite badly to. So there's a lot of different foods.
I know a few people in our scene that their blood markers and stuff show that they should not be, for example, eating so much red meat, but they still do it because they think it's based, you know. For example, too much iron. I know a guy that has to donate blood because he has too much iron and stuff, but he refuses to stop eating red meat and stuff like that because he thinks it's so good for him, you know. So like you said, it's all very, very specific to individual.
Yeah, there are certain problems with having too much red meat. I've eaten a lot of red meat over the last year, and I love red meat. It doesn't affect me in that way. I also have coffee a lot, quite frequently, which prevents me from absorbing too much iron. When I have tea, that helps as well. So you need to be very careful about how much micronutrients. Iron is seen as a universal good. It's not. I mean, actually, iron is a heavy metal, which is toxic. It's just pretty valuable for oxygen in the bloodstream. But you can definitely have too much iron, and a lot of the time, people think that iron is the solution when they feel bad and they feel awful all the time. A lot of the time, it's salt, which is minerals, which are way more important than iron for actually staying, feeling good. Iron supplementation, you shouldn't supplement iron. You should eat foods with iron. That's one that you should really, really avoid. Like you're eating heavy metals, like that isn't even heme iron, which is actually fine to take because heme iron will not oxidate in your bloodstream as easily. Have you seen iron rust? That is literally what iron does. You eat chunks of iron. And if you look at anything that's fortified with iron, such as flours and cereals, you crush that up, you blend it up, and then you put it in water and you stir it around and you put it in a bag and you get a magnet. You will be able to get the flakes of iron out with that magnet. You will see flakes of iron. You're eating that rusts and it does not digest it properly in your bloodstream. It's a terrible idea to have that. But yeah, you can, I think that's obvious. If it's not obvious, then stop eating anything that's fortified with iron and replace it with something else that's better. But, that's not really my central point. My central point is about, even with the basic assumptions of a diet like this, there are still problems with food chains which occur in the modern world, which means that even traditional diets are not perfect nowadays. Like if you just eat fish because you think it's always healthy, sometimes fish is actually polluted with microplastics. You have to be careful about where you get it. And there are many more issues other than just microplastics. Things that you get at the supermarket can be really bad. And you need to experiment a lot. You need to think a lot about every food that you consume. And one way of doing this is by doing elimination diets, where you try to manage your diet very well, remove one thing, see how you feel, add it back, see how you feel, and then make sure that was the factor, and then do it with different things. And so you need to be kind of controlled, and you can't have too much fun in this process.
I agree.
But it's important, I think, to invest in your health, to know what actually agrees with you, what you really digest well and what you don't digest well. And that's an investment in your life, your longevity, your health, and also your strength in the gym and your physical performance and your mental performance. It's a massive investment you can make in yourself.
I agree. And the thing that I recommend people now, for example, when dealing with some problems like acne, as I did not necessarily do an elimination diet. I did go vegan, I did do vegetarian stuff, but I never really tried going in the elimination diet. And it really is simple in that terms. Like, you just cut everything off, go to bare essentials, and slowly add, see what agrees with you, and you can solve many problems with just this, avoid so many supplements, so many medications just by eliminating. And if something doesn't agree with you, fine. That's a worthwhile sacrifice instead of dealing with some issues. For example, like both you and I with dandruff, gluten is a problem. Oh well, I can live with it. I would rather have a healthy scalp and everything else than eat a piece of bread.
Yeah. I thought, I learned a lot about fermentation probably in 2020 and 2019, and I thought, well, if you ferment the gluten in bread by creating sourdough bread, then it's fine. You will. I know that it's not an active microbiome because it's been cooked, but the gluten will be disarmed. The fact is that you're only fermenting for a relatively short period of time, and it's not enough to disarm gluten enough. And when you actually consume any form of bread which has gluten in it, even if it's sourdough, you will get the negative effects of gluten. And gluten is not digestible by the gut. It will pass through the gut, but not all of it does, and some of it ferments in the intestinal tract and has really bad effects because it will basically produce compounds that are really bad for your brain, and also will feed fungus in your gut, like candida, very, very effectively because it's so digestible by candida. And so most people benefit from cutting out gluten. Pasta and bread are the biggest things, right? Really. And at the same time, these things bloat you. They make you feel puffy and bad a lot of the time. Some people are fine with bread. Even I'm mostly fine with bread. But then I've noticed, I've got dandruff. Like, why have I got so much dandruff? I guess something's wrong. I cut out gluten. Dandruff went within a week. I reintroduced gluten within a month of that. Dandruff came back. I got rid of gluten. I was like, okay, I've done enough things now that even if I'm eating sugar like all the time and I'm eating like sweets and chocolate, I don't get gluten. I don't get dandruff. But if I introduce this one thing, I do. I don't care what studies say. I don't care what science says. Science is just studying what I'm doing on a mass scale, and what I'm doing is giving me a clear and I do not have any dandruff, and I've not eaten any gluten like consistently since the beginning of last year.
Nice.
You cannot explain that to me without you cannot explain that to me or tell me I'm wrong because of the study. I don't care what the study says. I know more than the study. Literally, I know more than the study. I've done it myself.
Yeah, of course.
I saw it. Yeah, we were talking about elimination diets. Elimination diets are the core of because there's no diet that you can follow that will perfectly match everything that you need as a human. You have to experiment on yourself, and it's kind of unfortunate to some extent that you can't just study a bunch of things and then know what's universally good and bad. It's kind of unfortunate, but to some extent it is good because once you learn a lot of things about yourself and how you digest and how you react to things, and maybe your partner learns about that too, you will be able to give your children very, very, very good diets. And then their grandchildren, and you'll know what's good and bad. You're actually not just learning this for yourself, but you're for your progeny, and also for your parents as well, because your parents will have a very similar reaction to certain foods that you will. And so if they've worked anything out, then you should learn from them. And if you've learned anything, then you should teach your children. And this is great. This is great because you can realize, actually, I've got a lot of grandparents that died from this. Okay, and they ate a lot of that. Well, that can actually teach you a lot about you, how you should eat as a young man as well.
Absolutely.
You can't just listen to the science, because the science is necessarily divorced from the individual and how the individual reacts. Because yes, there's certain mechanistic studies which are valuable, but when you go to epidemiology and you study, let's say, 1,000 people and how they react to X thing, what you're getting is the average reaction to X thing. And the average reaction is the reaction of hundreds of thousands of people, the mean of that. So if one person had a terrible reaction to it and another person had no reaction to it, that counts as a small reaction. And so if most people don't react to something and then one person does, then it will not show up in data. It will be statistically significant. And that's a massive problem. It means that we don't really learn core fundamental things about the individual's reaction via that kind of study. You can only learn about the average person's average reaction across a huge number of people. So you have to do a lot of work. You can listen to studies, you can read studies, you can learn about how certain compounds are valuable or not valuable. You can test it on yourself, but you do have to test it on yourself. You can't just preach one certain food as the answer to life, even if there are certain values. Like eggs, I think are great. I think most people should try eggs, see how they react to them. I don't react to eggs. I have a great relationship with eggs. I have them every single day. I have no reaction to cheese. I get any form of meat I'm completely fine with. Most vegetables, especially root vegetables, I'm fine with. So I'm pretty close to the vertical diet. And I have a good, gut health as well. But there may be things like I get pretty bad allergies in the spring. You were obviously talking about bee pollen. Maybe that allergy is actually caused by something that I'm eating that I don't really know much about.
Could be.
Maybe it's intensified. Maybe there's something I'm eating right now that if I cut out, I wouldn't get the bad symptoms that I get in the spring, even if bee pollen helps it, which it does. I don't know that yet, and I have to do a lot of elimination stuff in certain seasons to know that. But once I know that, I will have, if my children start getting hay fever, I will know that I can remove a certain food from their diet and they'll be completely fine. That's medicine. That's better than any drug you can give my children.
Exactly.
It's an incredible medicine.
Yeah, that's what I said before. The point, like, yeah, elimination diet is the best medicine. It can save lives. For example, my family, they have a history of diabetes. Diabetes, what's called in English? Same, yeah. And
Mhm.
and I know to be careful with not overeating. For example, just overeating in general can spike my blood sugar so high, and then sooner or later I can get diabetic. So I need to be careful about that. And some things like peppers. My mother gets a heartburn from eating peppers. Well, I realized same thing for me, and stuff like that. And it's the same as I said with beans. We handle beans very well, so I can eat them, and it's very kind of simple. So just to add to your point, like, yeah, look what your family is having issues with, look what's digested well, and at the end of the day, before I was like, the supplement or the food I'm eating, it is good for me, even though I do not feel it. But nowadays I'm like, no, I actually have to feel if I'm doing this something right for me. Maybe it's not instant, maybe it takes a month, but still, I need to feel if something that I'm taking is actually worthwhile and doing changes. I'm not anymore like, but this is good maybe for my longevity. I know that good things are actually immediately felt for your well-being and performance.
Yeah, that's a massive problem with this whole system, is that it's very easy to tell that alcohol doesn't make you feel good because you drink alcohol and you feel bad after the next day, and also you normally feel bad whilst you've had it. You just sort of also have certain emotions that are emphasized so that you maybe feel good in the moment, but you still know you don't feel very good. The next day you feel awful. You know that it's alcohol that did that. You might eat like a certain meal and you feel awful immediately. That's really easy because but there are many, many foods that have passive and small and minor effects on you. And the problem is with that is that you may think that's just how you are. You may currently exist in a state where you think that you're just expressing your highest self, but you don't even know what other people are feeling and how they live. You might actually feel completely lethargic and exhausted compared to other people, but because you can't physically jump into their body and feel how they feel, you won't know that. And so this experimentation could literally bring you to a higher plane of existence if you know that certain foods that you're eating today are having negative effects on you. And the problem is that this stuff stays in your gut for days and sometimes has effects on you for weeks. And you will not know that unless you give a serious shot towards removing or adding something to your diet and feeling how it feels for a month, and then also avoiding other foods. This is why you may seem crazy if you completely avoid restaurants, fast food, you avoid treats, you avoid all this stuff, but you are investing in yourself better than anyone else is. If you completely avoid those stuff and you have complete control over everything that you eat for months and years, you will know so much about your genetics, about how you react to things. You will then be able to go to a restaurant and be able to ask them to replace the sea dolls in something, because you can eat something in that restaurant that's fine. You can then manage your life a lot better. You just have to spend a bit of time to actually learn how to do that in the first place.
Yeah. I always say, like, from the beginning, I always said, you do not know how bad you feel until you start feeling good. It's simple as that. Be it with mental health, be it with physical, it's all very
That's
connected.
true.
Yeah, like only when you start making changes, you will be like, oh my god, I cannot believe this was my normal. So it completely changes. Like for me, for example, seed oils and stuff like that, I can handle them for like a day or two, but if I try to eat more than that, I start getting inflammation, I start getting problems. For example, but one day, if I'm eating like very bad food, nothing, absolutely nothing. But as soon as it starts compounding, that's when I get problems. So I realize these things, I do not have to completely not live a life, but I can still feel at my baseline level that I've reached, And like you said, I'm sure that I can even maybe transcend this to a whole different level if I really try, So it's always, I mean, why would someone even waste their time doing this? Well, obviously because if you feel good, if you eat good, you will feel good, you will look good, you will perform good, and this is, I guess, what everyone is trying to do, right?
It's also even if you want to live a normal life and have a normal diet, even though the word normal is only a relative term, relative to all the people who have obesity and terrible health complications by the age of 45, and are unable to get on the floor and climb things and raise their children and carry their children. That's what normal is, by the way. So, if you worship normality and being average, then enjoy your average life where you have an operation at the age of 60.
I made a post like 1 year ago. It was literally called "Are You Normal?" And it was completely roasting everything in the world, like what normal is. It's completely lost meaning. And I often argue with people like close to me. But just be normal. Like, why do I have to invent these things? Why do I have to be special? Just be normal. Just live a life. But man, there's nothing worse, honestly, than being normal nowadays.
Exactly. If you do desire to be normal, it's still valuable to have information and knowledge about yourself, and as a result of that, that information that you learn about yourself by doing these kinds of elimination diets and experimenting with yourself and taking time to actually take seriously certain foods and see how you react to them. The time that you spend on that will not disappear once you've tried it. It's actually an investment in your future life as well, because maybe you go through your 20s and you do have a pretty bad life and pretty bad diet and all those kinds of things. But if you did a few experimentation diets and you actually learned what you react to, you might be able to take yourself really seriously in your 30s or 40s, maybe. I would say that it's a pretty bad risk if you start getting serious about your health in your 40s. But, but having this knowledge is ultimately valuable for your whole life. Knowing what you react to. And as I said again, if you want to have children, you need to know what you react badly or well to, because you're going to put your children into a diet that damages them from a young age. They won't be able to express their highest potential because of the fact that you've given them foods that causes inflammation to them for years. You might give them allergies that they didn't have to have. You might lower their IQ. You could literally do that because you don't know what you react well to. And you obviously, ideally, you would have been raised with a perfect diet, but you didn't know it and your parents didn't know it. They followed the standard whatever diet of your country. And that's a terrible tragedy that you would then subject your children to that because you didn't have it. I think that knowing as much as you possibly can about how you eat, how you need to be eating for yourself, is invaluable information for your future as well as yourself. Even if you don't take yourself seriously and you want to damage and kill yourself by the age of
Well, I feel obesity. Like my family, for example, for my horrible acne, I feel like it could be a lot more prevented if they knew what was going on or how they react to certain things, because this is all genetic and hormonal, you could say, but still there are some things that inflame me. And I know this obviously from experience, eating a lot of processed meats, for example, salami and stuff like that, that gets me horribly inflamed, But obviously, no blaming. It happens what happened, but it's up to you, it's up to us to fix this for the next generations,
Yeah, I think there's another thing, which is that people don't really realize how much you can do with diet. For example, how puffy your face is. That's something that if you have a puffy face and you feel uncomfortable in your face and you remember yourself having a more slim and tight face in the past, that may actually be a diet thing. And even if you get lean and your face is still a bit puffy, that could be a diet thing, more than just the calories you're eating. This is why If It Fits Your Macros is so cringe, because if you just care about your macros and you technically get lean, you could still have a fat, chubby, puffy face and feel uncomfortable. You could still have could still be getting acne. You could actually be really unhealthy whilst being still lean.
Oh man, I
you
could
have
get
terrible hormone management. And there's more than just face puffiness as well. There's how red your eyes are. There's how your hair looks. How oily or dry is your hair. That can be affected by diet. There's redness of skin. You can get rosacea. That could be an inflammation reaction that you get. You could literally get injured in the gym more because of the fact that you have inflammation and you've not managed your diet properly. You could get arthritis later in your age. You could. There's so many different things that you can change, regardless of whether you're lean or you're fat. Or your average weight. You can change so many things about how you look and feel through your diet and the foods
Yeah.
that you eat. And it's extremely important to take this seriously because you may be able to make yourself look and feel better than you could possibly imagine. And it's not just a purely mental expression of how you feel, it's literally how you look as well. And if you want to look better, then
Yeah.
you should take your diet seriously in more ways than just getting lean.
Yeah, well, thing for me, for example, is my brother and stuff that struggle with this is that we would have pronunciated like gut. Like even though abs are there, they would still have a gut. And I realized this is from eating too much carbs or in general like pasta and stuff. It just gets you puffed up, you know.
And beer, I don't know if they have beer, but beer is massively.
Yeah, they don't, but
unfortunately,
I agree. Yeah, I agree. And honestly, yeah, I was like, why do I was at the one point in my life I was constantly having to keep my gut, you know, abs sucked in, so I do not have a gut because I was like lean, but still my shirt, like when I was standing up, I would have more gut than my chest. So it was it was very like I was self-conscious of it, but yeah, simple fixes helped me a lot. But let's continue what next time. Well, alright, Thomas, so you talked a bit about on your stories about having allergies and that you found the perfect solution. You mentioned it a bit in this episode, you know, how bee pollen helped you a lot, but I think we should, to our listeners, go deeper into this topic because I think you found great benefits from it other than the allergies, right?
Yeah, it's weird. Like I think in these spheres, right, you become so obsessed with certain forms of nutrition, supplementation, esoteric like cures and stuff like that, that you sometimes come across like secret cures that no one's talking about, which it's quite absurd because this is a widely available product which you could get in most cities, in most towns. You could find this somewhere because every beekeeper makes it and keeps it. It's widely available. You can find it on the internet and it's cheap. It's not expensive. It's not some kind of rare good. But if you have hay fever and you go through the medical system and you have terrible have a terrible relationship with pollen for years in your life. I developed hay fever when I was like 8, and it's been the worst hay fever of anyone I know. I brag about that. It's not something I feel pride about. It's just I've had hay fever, what one could call a hay fever attack, where I'm walking through like a very pollinated forest, in later spring, early summer, normally June it happens, and it's so intense that I just can't use my eyes. I have to. It basically takes me fully out of action for about a week a year, but for about 10, 20 weeks, 10, 15 weeks a year, I'd say 10, 15, I am normally feeling awful, constantly blowing my nose, constantly having awful reactions, sneezing, nosebleeds, constant nosebleeds. The other day I had a nosebleed actually, even with pollen. I had a terrible nosebleed because what happens is the membrane between the blood vessel and the nose thins, and it becomes much easier if you're sneezing a lot and you're generating a lot of pressure through your nose. You can just burst that vessel very easily and get a long nosebleed. We're talking 10, 15 minutes. I had to train anyway because I love training, but I was lightheaded whilst training. It wasn't very fun. I just did an arm day as a result of that. But sort of coming back to this point, this is a widely available product that you can get and doesn't cure hay fever, but it basically is a form of immunotherapy. So many different things you can become resistant to if you have an autoimmune disease by microdosing the thing that you're resisting or fighting against. Your body perceives pollen, if you have hay fever, as a threat, as some kind of threat. It's kind of a glitch in your immune system, but you can't teach your immune system because it's an inbuilt thing. What you can do is expose yourself to minor amounts of pollen, and bees basically pick up thousands and thousands of samples of pollen from huge regions of the world. So if you have a fairly local one, and when I say local, I mean within a few countries of you, because pollen isn't that.
Literally, yeah.
It's about the climate, really. So the one I get is from Poland because I know a beekeeper who is based in where I am in the south of the UK, but he also has other apiaries in Poland, and he gets a lot of bee pollen from there and ships it over. So I get it from there, and I have a quarter teaspoon to a half teaspoon, so not much every day. It's very cheap. It costs about £8 in my currency for half a kilo, 400 grams or so. So about £1, and
Same here, yeah.
it will last. It will last a year if I use it every day. It's just over a gram, maybe 2 grams, and so maybe it'll last like 8 months or something like that. Is I don't need it for 8 months. I only really need it from the beginning of hay fever season to midsummer around July, when my hay fever stops. And what it will do is it will microdose, and it will basically teach me basic immunity to hay fever. I would say that my hay fever symptoms reduce. Today would be a really bad day for me, and I'm only sniffing very slightly. I've not sneezed today. So I'd say it's about a 70% to 80% reduction in hay fever symptoms. That being said, the last week or so since I really started microdosing it properly, I've had zero, I'd say maybe 5% hay fever symptoms. It's insane. Like, I know walking through a field, I'd be like, wow, if I hadn't taken pollen today, I would feel awful. There's another thing I'd add to this, whilst I'm on this sort of short tirade, which is that you don't just have hay fever and suffer. You have hay fever, you go to a doctor and they give you hay fever tablets, or they tell you to buy them, and you take those tablets which say non-drowsy on them. And then for 3 months of the year, you feel low energy, exhausted. They reduce your testosterone, this is proven, and they make you feel terrible, okay? And you're like, well, they're non-drowsy, so it must be something else. What is it? I don't know. Maybe it's hay fever. So you associate hay fever with reducing your vitality and making you feel awful, because medicine always tends to do this. It gives you secondary symptoms that you don't actively notice for long periods of time, and you find it hard to associate. And then you think it's something else. You think it's just how life is. But the fact is, I've not taken any hay fever tablets so far this year, and I hope to take none because of this pollen. And I just feel amazing. Last year, I remember taking it for 2 weeks, hay fever tablets, and it ruined my life at work. I was just awful energy all the time. And so I just stopped taking them, so I'm not going to take anything. And thankfully, I then came across hay fever, not hay fever, pollen, bee pollen, and it saved my summer, to be honest. And this year, I have high confidence that I'll be fine for the rest of the spring, but this so far, I would have had terrible hay fever symptoms from mid-April. Now it's early May, and I'm completely fine. The real challenge for me, and something I'll report back on my Instagram, is early June, because early June is the worst time of year for me every single year. I'm completely out of action. I'm unable to function. And unfortunately, I didn't get to test it last year. I only really found it in late June. And it did help a ton. It was, as I said, 70-80% reduction. But let's see what happens in early June this year. And that will be a really, really good testing moment for me. Regardless, I'm 100% confident that bee pollen is amazing, aside from all the other benefits, which I haven't even began talking about.
Yeah, like I get a lot of. The other day I posted on my story that I literally have a personal forest in my garden, that I love it. And so many people are like, yeah, you like spring, but allergies. There's so many people that are actually suffering with these things, so I think this will be very useful for them to try. And I know that a few like rare instances of people actually get worse symptoms, like 1% get worse symptoms when they take bee pollen, but majority of them actually will benefit from it, so they should definitely try. And actually, now that you said it, I think my girlfriend sometimes takes these tablets. Obviously, testosterone is not that important to her, but still, I think I should get her on bee pollen as well. So let's just
energy.
Exactly. So I will try it, and I will report back as well. I wonder how she will respond to it. But what are the other benefits that bee pollen? Because I think it's just a great supplement in general. I took it when I was recovering from my long COVID, you could say. And I took so many things that I do not know necessarily what helped, but I'm sure that it did help me a lot,
Yeah. So just on that point you said about people feeling worse, if you have an allergy to bees, you should not take bee pollen, because bee pollen contains not just pollen, but also everything that bees use to stick it together, which are biological compounds which are active in bees. So technically you're consuming parts of a bee when you consume it, not like the body of a bee, but functionally it's parts of a bee. And so as a result of that, if you are allergic to bees, do avoid bee pollen, or at least talk to somebody who's a professional, or even somebody who's a beekeeper, because they actually will know much more about this than doctors, by the way. they're actually an expert. If you've read a bunch of textbooks about a whole bunch of different medical fields and become a professional doctor, you probably don't know much about bee pollen because it's not it's not very actively studied in the medical community. It's not used as a medicine. You'll have studied different medical compounds which are used by pharmaceutical companies. That's what you'll know about. So the actual experts are the people who produce this stuff and use it every single day and live with it. That's the people who actually are an expert.
I'll just add on where I bought it from, like, this old lady, and she has a label on it, and it literally says it cures physical, mental, and spiritual problems. It's like it is good for everything, for vitality. I was laughing so hard, and I'm like, she knows.
Yeah, that's the source. It was revealed to me in the dream. But it's actually true. That's just what I'd say. When I take bee pollen, I actually do get a small reaction to it if I haven't steeped it in lemon juice for long enough. Because I'm allergic to pollen, so I'm allergic to this thing that I'm consuming. But if you steep it in lemon juice and water for long enough, I'd say about 6 to 8 hours, you'll be able to digest it very easily, and it will go through you very easily. If you don't do that, I only did it for 2 hours because I really wanted to take it before I went outside yesterday. It's quite intense, and my throat slightly closes up. It's not enough to be a dangerous thing, but yeah, do leave it in the lemon juice for a long time. But then moving on to the other benefits, bee pollen has over 250 active compounds. Now, that's so many that it's very, very difficult to study. Because you're not just studying 250 active compounds, which may have studies in other areas as well. You're also studying the interrelationship between those different active compounds, how they work together, and is there synergy? Is there are there problems that sort of come across? Is it discordant? What do we know? What we do know is a ton of anecdotal evidence, some studies on some of the compounds, and anecdotal evidence is valuable, but not just the problem with when people say anecdotal evidence is what they think it is I took this and I felt great. That's not anecdotal evidence. That's the first level of anecdotal evidence, which says I should consider this. If 1,000 people, all who have a severe condition, take something which in a small dose and it prevents their condition, they then take that out of their diet, and then their condition comes back, and then they add it back to their diet multiple times, and the same thing happens. That's still anecdotal evidence, even if 1,000 people said it, even if it's not in a formal study. That is when we're actually talking about a serious effect, which then could be studied, sure, but we know enough to know that it's valuable before we need to study it. We don't need to study it to know. And the 250 active compounds, we're talking about, most people feel more energetic when they're having bee pollen. There's a lot of antimicrobial, antifungal effects that it has, so it can be really good for candida overgrowth. This is well studied, actually. I've linked a few studies in my stories. You can find that in my highlight, by the way, on my health highlight. I've now put that there.
The funny thing about your highlights is that everything is great, but you have two duplicated cat highlights. That's how much you hate cats.
Yeah, I removed that, but to be fair, I might put it back because I do want people to read it twice.
That'll be the perfect meme for your page. But go on.
Yeah, I think I should put it down as just the sole one is the cat one. But yeah, I've got it on my highlights. I'm just opening them up now. I've got a lot of health highlights actually on this thing, so you have to go quite far through. But regardless, there's just so many benefits it has. I would say that if you're looking for basically like a sort of cure-all for many conditions, it could even help with illness because it's so anti-inflammatory. It would be a good thing to take even if you don't have hay fever because it's so cheap. Now, if you don't have hay fever, you don't need to be taking it every day or every 2 days. I would consider doing one of these concoctions where you get a cup, you cover the cup after you've put in 1/4 teaspoon or 1/2 teaspoon of bee pollen, add some lemon juice, add some water, cover it over with like cling film or something, leave it in just a cupboard for like a day or so. Maybe like you do it in the morning and then you open it up in the evening, you drink it. Do that twice a week, 3 times max, and it will have huge benefits for you outside of just hay fever if you have that. It can actually help with a lot of different conditions, such as just general inflammation, which almost everybody has, by the way, because if you have any form of trans fats, those trans fats will remain in your system for something like 60 days active, and it will take about 60 days for your body to actually tame that trans fat and dispose of it and neutralize it. So almost everyone has a form of inflammation within their body. Normally it comes up in the cheeks, in the redness of the cheeks, or in the puffiness of the face, as we were talking about in the earlier parts of the podcast. It could even be things is very, very common.
It got cut off. It got cut off, man.
Oh, sorry. I was talking about.
Yeah, the last part was it could even be things like, and then it cut off. So you can just continue from there.
Yeah, it could even be forms of, like redness of the face, puffiness of the face, as we were talking about yesterday. Many different forms that we don't even recognize day to day. The other thing I was going to say is the fungal overgrowth. Well, the Western diet effectively optimizes fungal overgrowth. If you want to increase the amount of fungus in your system, first of all, you destroy your gut microbiome, so that it's like a blank slate for any compound, any microbe that gets into your, any fungus that gets into your system will be able to regrow itself as fast as possible, because you have, it's like a blank slate of just free food. Whenever you eat anything in your intestines will just be free food for fungus. And what will then happen is, since every single fermented food is pasteurized, and every single food is pasteurized, the only forms of food that we eat will be fungal. Will cause more fungal overgrowth. Yeah. So there's no good bacteria in your system if you're eating a normal Western diet. Then you're having pesticides. You're just destroying your gut lining at every single moment. And then you're eating a bunch of carbs and sugars, which are ultra processed and like mashed into a pulp, and then sugar is added, and then they're deep fried. You're basically like, you're as I said, you're optimizing for fungal overgrowth, and that's what most people will have. And this is what causes dandruff to some extent as well. Gluten can also increase this as well. There's so many different problems with fungus in the Western diet, which has terrible effects. It's also the smell. If you smell bad, just naturally, there's normally a fungal overgrowth that causes that as well. There's many different negative effects that can come from that. So yeah, I'd say, I wouldn't say it's the first step is bee pollen, but bee pollen's massively valuable in that. It's been proven to kill candida in vitro studies, and also basic human studies have been done on this as well. So yeah, I recommend it. I think it's a great compound for just general inflammation, general life as well. And some people report, this is more of the anecdotal sphere that I can't really vouch for, but I have heard reports of people feeling more energy when they take it. There have been some studies which studied testosterone and saw that actually it reduces the aromatase enzyme, which aromatizes testosterone into estrogen. So it will actually increase your free testosterone by default by reducing the amount of testosterone you turn into estrogen. And in compound with that, because it's reduced estrogen, there'll be a higher testosterone to estrogen ratio, which is very valuable if you have certain problems with converting too much, which can happen if you're have slightly higher body fat. And yeah, you'll just have a higher testosterone overall. Now, the amount hasn't been studied yet, but that's an interesting note. It's just an extra thing. So yeah, there's a series of benefits which are great, but also, as I said, 250 active compounds. That is more things than you can possibly imagine, which are almost all going to be good things.
Absolutely. And I think both you and I should experiment the next step with maybe pine pollen, because I heard that it's literally like, especially for testosterone and stuff like that, that it's greater than bee pollen and stuff like that. So I definitely on the lookout for that. But I was wondering, I actually remember talking to you a while back ago. Have you managed to try shilajit from the Himalayas?
Yeah. I've had shilajit. I've had 2 tubs of it, which I've gone through. So yeah, I used it last year. I didn't really perceive anything, but I know that it can be good for heavy metals, and it can be good for testosterone and vitality and energy. Some of it's marketing, but I do think that it's got these mineral compounds that you just don't get from the diet anymore. So
Yeah,
I
yeah,
quite enjoy it. I actually enjoy the flavor of Shilajit. I found it really delicious to have like just literally just eat the thing. Um,
Well, they say
and yeah,
if it's delicious, then it's probably not the right Shilajit. They say that.
no, sorry, it tastes awful, but
Yeah,
like
yeah.
I enjoy the
Oh,
taste.
fair enough.
It's like when you first have black coffee and you're like, this is disgusting, but it's kind of like a nice bitterness that you
Yeah,
quite
yeah.
like.
I
You
like
get the
it
same
too.
with
Like
it tastes
dark
like
chocolate.
yeah, you ever had like Marmite? Like
I
Marmite
haven't,
just
but I
tastes
imagine it tastes like that. I was like, I'm sure that it tastes similar to this.
yeah, it's like darker and more bitter, disgusting Marmite. But what I'm saying is, I like that taste. It tastes really nice to me. I'm not saying that it tastes like sugar or something like that. No, it's awful,
Yeah.
but it's like a nice awful. I think it's an acquired taste, is what I'm saying.
Yeah, I think the Shilajit, I mean, I promote it and stuff like that. I feel like the people that will benefit from it the most are the people that are more nutritionally deprived, that are lacking micronutrients, and especially, in this world where there's no real soil, there's no real way to get those trace minerals. So I think that it is the best for that, for those people, and especially as you grow older, you get more and more deficient. Your body runs through these stores of these minerals. So your nails start getting more brittle, your hair starts falling out, and that's why a lot of people actually experience miraculous things with it, and some less. But it's still very healthy, for, like you said, heavy metal. Heavy metal. For example, when you're cutting, a lot of people don't know this. The heavy metals are stored in your fat, and when you're burning a lot of fat, you're actually all those metal is going through your system, and you can poison yourself like this. So using Shilajit during a cut is actually very something that I recommend a lot. And also Shilajit, this is newer studies, and this is something that, although we said like if you don't feel it, then maybe you probably shouldn't take it, but it says that it protects against radiation, which is something that is very new still, very unresearched. We don't know how much it affects us, to have all of these signals around our bodies. But the studies are slowly coming, and it's seen, how actually it ruins our mitochondria function. So it seems that is the future, that is the way we need to optimize things, but that's a completely other topic. Honestly, there are people that talk for hours about mitochondria, about grounding and stuff like that. We can leave that for other people. But another supplement that I think both you and I were taking recently is ashwagandha. And I will tell my style story first, because I took ashwagandha like few years ago. It was literally a meme. I found it almost through memes, because people were like, yeah, ashwagandha increased testosterone, stuff like that. But a lot of people obviously taking it before, like I think from India or something like that, right? It means like sweat of a horse or smell of a horse, something like that is the
it's Ayurvedic medicine.
yeah. Yeah. And basically, I was giving it a shot, but I never felt anything. Like, I can be honest, like for years, I was taking it for a month or something, never felt a difference. Only that I hated my life because I drank the bitter tea. But recently, I decided to mega dose it. I was like, let me take 3 times what they say recommended, because I think like they just played safe, So I was like 3 times the dose, and okay. Didn't feel nothing, but obviously this is because it takes a while for your body to start reacting to it. It is an adaptogenic herb, which means it adapts to your body pretty much, to yourself. It's not like it has a specific effect that will be felt immediately, but basically I was taking it, and what I noticed, and this is very subtle, but now that I think about it, I felt just less fazed by life. It is simple as that. I felt less when there was some events that were happening, because that's why I started taking it. There were some stresses in my life. I just felt less fazed, and this is what I expected, and this is why I was prepared for it, because I was afraid of the void before. They say that you start feeling nothing. I was afraid of this, but this time I was like, I want that, and I will be ready for it. So I took it, and then yes, that is exactly what I experienced. So I was not feeling anything, and I liked it for this specific period of time. Like when I was happy, like when my girl, gave me a gift for my birthday, stuff like that, I was like, thank you very much, but I could not express my gratitude properly. It's just that part of me was just not working, and I felt bad for it. But still, I even though I felt bad, it was not showing. So I was just like, yeah. But now that some problems have passed, I stopped taking it. But what is interesting is that the mindset kind of remained. I guess I kind of am still not stressed about things, but again I can express my emotions easily. So I guess it almost kind of taught me a bit about how to handle stress a bit better,
I've taken ashwagandha over 2 distinct phases of time. One was where I didn't know anything about this stress, this kind of bubble wrap. Yeah, I call it bubble wrap because I don't know. I've never taken SSRIs, like depression pills. I never will. But I know people who have, and they kind of describe it as being like 2 or 3 layers removed from the world, like they're kind of distant from it. Okay. And that's it's the perfect description for the experience that many people have on ashwagandha, which is like your cortisol is so much lower, and you also just don't really feel stuff. And yeah, I didn't actually know anything about ashwagandha in that way. I just wanted to get testosterone. So I've actually had a kilo of the powder stuff, organic stuff, which I've added to tea in like quite large doses over 2 distinct periods of time. One was probably like 5 months long until I stopped it, and I felt, I felt the effects of it. And the problem is, I realized this before going into it more. I heard about the testosterone, I took it, and then I began experiencing ashwagandha. And then I realized after a few months, like, wow, like my energy is just kind of lower. I don't really have the drive that I had, and I'm not really feeling very motivated in life. And I remember hearing like really stressful moments had happened, and I was like completely unfazed. And yeah, at that point I realized that. And then I saw some meme with a guy who's lifting, and he does his first 100 kilo 225 bench, right? Yeah. And it's like when the gym bros on ashwagandha, and like, he gets his bench, and then he like stands up, and they're like, well done, bro, yeah. And he's like, yeah, it's good. It's like, wow, that's really good. That's like, I didn't even realize that people would experience this. But then I read more about it, and I heard that many people have had SSRI-like symptoms from ashwagandha, where they were getting like, they just felt completely distant from the world. It's like it didn't make you feel bad, but it also didn't make you feel very good a lot of the time. And that's when I really realized, oh wait, this supplement isn't a long-term usage kind of thing unless you're having chronic stress issues. And if you are having chronic stress issues, first of all, you need to try to mitigate those things. But secondary, you need to pay a little bit more attention to what supplements you're taking, and ashwagandha can help. The second time I took it was actually about 2 months ago. I was just going through a stressful time with work, with relationships, with various stress, and also not sleeping. Or when I was going to bed, I was twitching quite a lot, which was not very optimal. And so I was taking this, and it was helping a lot, and it helped me with sleep. I would say it's about a 1.5 month period where I was taking it. And it was very useful for that time. But that's really where I think it shines, ashwagandha, is it's really a use case. It's a tool in the toolkit. Exactly. You want to have it in your cupboard, not take it every day. You do not want to have this every single day, because you will lose the benefits of ashwagandha if you take it every day. It's a supplement which should be taken for 1 or 2 month periods of extreme high stress. I have a friend who I was actually talking with yesterday, and he discovered ashwagandha. And I said, do you know about the effects? And he was like, yeah. But he's a policeman, and his daily job is constant like basically having fights with criminals, dealing with murderers, dealing with rapists, going into houses, breaking into houses, that kind of stuff, like, doing intense, stressful things. And yeah, ashwagandha is amazing for him because he has the drive he needs, because he's got a job that does that, but he needs to reduce those peak levels of stress, and that can really help him. I know we're on a Zoom call, which we'll end in a moment, so we can jump on a new one. But I also wanted to add, that's where I think it shines. If you're about to have a child, I think the 3 month window around, the month before that you have the child and the 2 months after, that's a really good time to have ashwagandha. I think that's an understudied benefit, which a lot of people could get, because you have huge levels of prolactin increase when you have a child, and it can make you lose your hair. You can just age like 4 years in a single couple months. And the benefits of ashwagandha in this is that you have the drive and the testosterone that you need, but you don't have the stress management during that time. So I think that, you know, slightly reducing your stress is a really good idea in this case. So I would say that ashwagandha is amazing for just for chronic stress periods of time like that, or work, something like that, you know.
I agree. And when I make the new meeting, I will actually add a point that is very interesting, what you said about, even though it increases the testosterone, you can lose the drive, which is not go. It doesn't go together, you know, but it goes that in depth into the emotional side of our human self, you know. So let me just make the new meeting.
So yeah, like I said, you can have higher testosterone, for example, from ashwagandha, but you can have lower drive, and that goes into our psychology, because we are emotional driven beings, you know. Things that make us maybe happy or excited or thrilled, that's what gets us to do things, you know. And that's why even when you have a lower testosterone, for example, a sense of duty, of responsibility can drive you to do great things. So this is very interesting, you know, and that's where a lot of people get it wrong. They think that in just increasing their testosterone, they will automatically become this higher value man, when in reality it is what you do that makes you higher value man, and what you do what makes you feel like a higher value man. So that's actually a very valid, interesting point. And of course, what I also mentioned in that video that I made a month ago, biological things are very important, and they are a good foundation to everything that you do. But see how this works, you know, trying to just optimize everything is not always the correct option.
Yeah, very true. I think, you said it. You know, testosterone is a mindset. I like that, and I think it's true. I think that just trying to increase these numbers is sort of the wrong way to go about it. I think that testosterone is actually a lifestyle, and once you have that lifestyle in place, then you can start to increase these numbers as well, and it may help you. It's not, you know, taking. One of the problems with supplementation is that it's. I remember talking to one of my friends, and he was like, I've been feeling really low drive lately. And I gave him a whole series of recommendations as to what to do, how to live, how to eat, how to supplement. But I said the most important thing is how you live. The second thing is how you eat. And then the third thing is going to be how you supplement. And the first thing he jumps on is like, yeah, can you send me links to these supplements? You know,
every person that talks to me is the same, man.
It's so much more sexy to buy a bunch of pills and take them every day and be like, yeah, we're done. No, like, supplements are great, but I think the problem with social media is that we just, you know, this, like, the whole market is built around supplementation, because they are easily storable, easily produced, you know, chemical compounds that you can just take and then feel like you've done something. You know, that, and we overhype them way too much. They are valuable. I think that some supplements are really good to have, and you should be experimenting with supplements over time. The problem is that, you know, then they're just not chronically going to save your life or help you. They might help increase some numbers, especially if you are driven, if you are training very frequently and you need a bit more recovery. That's when a supplement can help. Or if you're working hard and then you're stressed all the time because of the immense work that you need to be doing because you're in your mid-20s and you need to, you know, sort of work on that. Yeah, then maybe ashwagandha can help, but you don't want to take ashwagandha for the testosterone boost, because it's not going to take you anywhere. You know, actually changing acting is going to do that. And then, you know, I don't want to say that these things do nothing. They are really valuable and they're really helpful. But it's just a chicken and an egg thing. You know, you can't put the supplements first and then the lifestyle second. You need to put the lifestyle first and then the supplement second or third. You know, third or fourth.
Yeah, but I think just simply said that what people think testosterone is just not right. You know, the perception about it. What they want is something else. You know, they do not want higher testosterone. That's the problem. They think that this will solve the problems, but in reality, they just need more discipline. They need a purpose in life, and that's just the way to, just the way people think wrongly about these things. You know, they think that this will solve the issues. No, it won't. You know, but after you've solved these bigger issues, like you said, then you can start adding more things. But let's move on to a topic that we couldn't wait to discuss, and that is something also which is related to health, but something that is very esoteric in some senses, but also very not talked about enough. It's the parasites, man. It's the parasites. They're everywhere. They are eating us. They are making us different mentality, different sexuality. Talk a bit about this.
Yeah, I think it's there's a good meme on Instagram which you'll see occasionally, which is the iceberg of parasites, which is where you realize a few things about parasites. That they're very common in humans. Sorry, can you still hear me? I'm kind of getting quite bad connection. Can you hear my voice?
Yeah. I can.
Okay, all good. Yeah. Just the video froze. So yeah, you realize a few things about parasites. That they're very common in every animal. That every animal is wormed every 6 months and should be wormed every 6 months. That every mammal is, other than humans. You realize that if there's something in you, it will perfectly live in a stasis of consuming a small amount of your food and multiplying itself, but not overdoing it so that it kills you, because it doesn't want you to die. It wants you to continue living. You also realize that a whole bunch of symptoms for different cancers and different forms of disease are actually quite similar to certain parasites. You realize these things, and then you start going a bit deeper, and you realize, whoa, there's quite a lot of things. Wait, but what about sexuality? What if this is a breeding strategy for parasites? Because we do know that parasites can influence psychology in mammals. It can actually, for example, cat urine can make mice desire to be friendly with cats. Cat urine, this is well studied and proven in nature, by the way, that if a cat's urine with toxoplasmosis, which is a parasite, is a unicellular parasite that is hosted by cats definitively in the ecosystem. If toxoplasmosis is in urine, then when a cat urinates, and a mouse will taste that or go near it, if that cat becomes infected by toxoplasmosis, it will become extremely excited to see a cat and to become friendly with the cat and come close to it. And that obviously is a death wish, okay, for a cat. If a cat wants, sorry, you've got quite a low connection. You can still hear me, right?
I can hear everything perfectly. Don't worry.
Cool. I'm going to turn the video off for a moment and see if that helps. So yeah, this is a yes, this is studied in mammals. So we've got a basic case here, which is that mammals can be affected. That doesn't necessarily mean that humans can be affected by parasites. That doesn't necessarily mean that we can be psychologically affected. But wait, we do know that humans can have psychological effects from parasites. Toxoplasmosis is well studied, for example. We know that it lowers inhibition. We know that it increases aggression. We know that people who have toxoplasmosis are something like 3 or 4 times more likely to crash cars. We know that they're more likely to develop schizophrenia. We know that they're more likely to have intense sexual urges towards non-standard subjects, if you were to say it like that. Now, I'm not talking about homosexuality, which is an argument we can get into. I'm talking about fetishes into weird things. People with parasites are far more likely to have fetishes into non-reproductive ends. And then this can kind of start to lead into this argument, which is that homosexuals have parasites at something like 70%, intestinal parasites at something like 70% or more rates, whilst heterosexual men have them at about a rate of 18%. So we're talking about a 4.5 times increase in rates. Now that's massive. We're talking about 80% of homosexuals having intestinal parasites having, this, and that's obviously because of their desire to go through intercourse in a way that would be extremely pro-parasitic. Now, there are different types of parasites, and I watched this show called Monsters Inside Me, which is actually really good if you're if you got 50 minutes, I think it's about an hour or 50 minutes, but they go through many different cases of parasites, and there's a very consistent story which is told, which is somebody caught a parasite when they were doing something. It could even be just living in a city. It could be they went to the tropics. It could be they went to like Africa. It could be that they had sex with somebody. It could be any number of things. It could be that they ate food at a restaurant that wasn't fully properly cooked. It could be the case that they ate food at home that they hadn't fully properly cooked. It could even be the case that they ate cooked food that still had a parasite in it somehow, even if they had properly cooked it. It could be the type of food. They had a raw food. There's just a million different causes. And the reason for that, which they sort of go into in this show, but also I've found in my later research as well, is that there's literally tens of thousands of species of parasites. And no doctor on earth could know all of the species of parasites, even if they're a specialist in parasites. There are so many different species, and that's because they have so many different methods as to how they can affect humans. Now, obviously, with the Pareto principle, about 20% or less of the species of parasites are the most prolific. For example, toxoplasmosis is infecting about 20 to 50% of humans. But we know that a huge proportion of the world is infected with parasites. Even in the Western world, we have huge rates of infection with parasites. And when I say infection, I mean that they are able to live in the human body and reproduce within the human body without continuously over many years. And there's also brain parasites. There's also skin parasites that crawl in you. Now, this is the kind of stuff that really gets you freaked out because you realize that there's a decent chance that you could be affected by this today. And this is where it gets really terrifying. And this is where I started to really do some research and get very scared. I would say it was in December. And I found a lot of different disgusting things. And this is really difficult to talk about. And it's the reason that I've not talked about it on my Instagram yet, because I don't want to make people too scared. This stuff is really bad. And I was going to go into a consistent story that is told about parasites in this show. What's told in this story: someone gets the parasite from a million different methods. They go to the doctor with symptoms. The doctor tells them that they have one of the standard forms of, malady that is common in Western society. They have a cold, they have the flu, oh, you have a headache, you should take a rest from work for a few days, take an antibiotic, and, see what you do, see how it goes. And this is the timeless story that's told. This is the same with the forms of cancer. Forms of cancer, you're diagnosed with cancer and you go through chemotherapy, and then then you may get rid of it, but it may come back. This is the method that we treat these things with. There's certain digestive issues like IBS, like different gut issues that people are just diagnosed with as having as a genetic condition, which maybe they got when they were a child and they grew up in a different country, and then they moved to America and they had issues for their entire life. And there's a guy that was like 80 who actually found out that he had intestinal parasites from the age of about 7. And they were destroying his ability to digest certain food, and he just thought he had a digestive issue, and he was going through basic medicine, and he spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on treatment, where he literally just had to go through a basic series of protocol which would have dewormed him, and he would have been fine all these years. And I'm talking about hundreds of cases of this happening, and even in this show where they just document certain cases, but we're talking about hundreds of thousands of people across the Western world who have parasites. We may even be talking about like literally 20 to 50% of people who have active intestinal parasites and they have a whole series of symptoms that you can't necessarily just say, if you have this, this, and this, therefore you have a parasite. It's not as simple as that, because it could be any number of things, and they are they're disguised within normal symptoms so that they survive because you think it's something else. So yeah, it's a terrible thing to study, terrible thing to research. And the only reason I'm talking about it here is because I think there's been too many questions I've received about it, too many people have talked about this and asked me about it and wanted to know more. In the last few days, I posted a comment on somebody's Instagram about parasites, because it was a parasite related post, and I got like 40-50 messages off of that single comment, people asking me about it. So I might refer to them to this podcast so I can talk a little bit more about it with them and for them as well. But essentially, if you're worried about having parasites, I would say you probably should be, to some extent. You are more likely than not to have parasites even if you live in a Western society, because there's so many different methods by which they spread, and there's so many symptoms that they have. So what I would say is, we can go into protocol. Do you have anything to say about that before I continue?
Well, one thing that people can do that sometimes I guess is different for other parts of the world, but you can get tested for it. A lot of people just don't. Yeah, for example, when I not all parasites, but for example, when I was a waiter, I had to have to get a sample of my like feces in order for them to test it to see if I have any parasites. And if I didn't, they don't have any parasites, they would not allow me to work. So this is, for example, here in Croatia, what we have to do, which is something that I'm thankful for, But obviously, they cannot detect everything that way. Not every parasite goes through there as well. But yeah, go on. I don't have anything special to add. Just we are
I
listening.
would say that the problem with the stool test and various other tests is that they have very high rates of false positives or false negatives. Or false negatives, I think it is. So you're told that you don't have it and you do, or you're told that you do have it and you don't. It's actually a very poor test for those things. So parasites are very, very easy to misdiagnose, or to wrongly think that you don't have them. And if you think you don't have them and you're having parasite symptoms, then it must be some kind of basic illness that you need to cure with antibiotics. This is the problem, is that if you don't know what your issue is, you can't face the issue. But yeah, so there's a standard protocol which I went through in early January to just test if there's something there. I didn't see any extreme, I didn't see anything that I can report back on. And maybe I was being schizophrenic on this, but at the same time, there are so many different parasites that aren't visible, even if you were to go through a protocol. But I would say that you can try this if you're a guy and you got some balls and you're not too scared and you want to just know that you're fine. I would say test this by going through a protocol. So you can go online and get some herbal supplements. This is a standard way to do it, which is fine in most countries. You can just get them on like Amazon. You can get wormwood capsules, black walnut, and clove capsules. And what you want to do is you want to take the cloves first, then you want to take the wormwood and black walnut supplements about 30 minutes after that on an empty stomach in the morning, and you want to do that in the evening as well. So this is 2 of each per day, and you want to do this for 7 days. You want to then take 7 days off and then do another 7 days in the morning and evening. And then what this will do is the cloves kill baby parasites, so eggs, destroy eggs, and the wormwood and black walnut will kill live parasites. So if you have anything in you, this should deal with it and also deal with the eggs. And the reason you do it again is if anything survive in the eggs, it will multiply over those 7 days, and then you'll kill that. So it's a little bit more of a foolproof method. Now that's all you need. If you were to just test and see, that's how far you should go. However, if you're more worried about this and you actually think you might have something, for example, if you have an itchy anus, I don't want to go into ugly details, but if you have an itchy anus at night, every night, if you have symptoms like just intense gut pain a lot of the time, and you think maybe it's IBS, even though you don't have a bad diet, if you're eating a lot of food but not gaining weight, for example, some people get this, and obviously try and increase your calories. Maybe it's nothing, but if you feel there could be an issue, if you're getting like intense headaches all the time and you couldn't quite explain it, there's lots of different reasons you might get this. And as a result, I would say that most people who are guys, at least, I don't know about women, but guys should try this, because there's not going to be any complications if you do. It's very unlikely to be, because these are safe supplements. They're not going to damage you if you take them only for 2 weeks, over 3 weeks. So that's all you need to do. But if you want to go a bit deeper, you can try fast, because parasites rely on intense volumes of carbohydrates going into your system. If you have intense carbohydrate and sugar cravings a lot of the time, this may actually be your parasites communicating with your brain to tell you to consume food that feeds them. And you often get a kind of Stockholm syndrome, where you enjoy things that your parasites enjoy, and your parasites will make you feel uncomfortable because they can do damage to you if you're not feeding them, essentially. So you can try a long fast. Now, 24 hours is probably fine, but if you really have some balls, you can do a 72-hour fast where you only consume sea salt and water, and you can have lemon juice and apple cider vinegar as well.
Easy.
Those are the things that you can have. That's very, very difficult, and it put me through a lot of difficulty, but I tried this for half spiritual reasons, and also half I was doing it whilst I was taking this protocol and seeing if it helped. It was very difficult, but after I finished that, the taste of everything was 10 times better. It was beautiful. It was like delicious. Everything was amazing, and it was quite fun as well to test it. That's the next thing I'd suggest. Then you can do lower carb diet generally. If you lower your carbs for a few weeks and you're getting intense reactions, more than just keto flu, which some people get, you may have some dependence because of parasites. That's something to pay attention to. Then you can also do a binding agent. Now, this is really important for heavy metals as well. So I would recommend people try a binding agent for some time. The two major ones I would recommend are zeolite clay or spirulina. Spirulina, as long as it's from a clean source, so do a bit of research into the place it's from. It's basically a form of like algae, basically, that's dried and basically picks up heavy metals, but also carries parasites or binds to parasites and carry them out of your system. So if you kill them, they're much less likely to reproduce. Zeolite clay, by comparison, you're literally eating dirt, by the way, but it's clean dirt, which is food safe. Zeolite clay, as long as you get a food safe form, zeolite clay will essentially bind to heavy metals as well, which is amazing because parasites love heavy metals in environments. So if you're having a lot of heavy metals in your diet, or as you were saying earlier, if heavy metals are released from your fat, you can take zeolite clay and that will carry it through your system and out. So it's a really, really nice system to deal with that. But also zeolite clay has a structure which will carry parasites. It will stick into parasites and carry them through your digestive system and into the toilet. So have a look in your toilet for this. I know it's not very amazing, but to talk about this, but it's such a massive issue that it cannot be avoided. Then, if you're wanting to go a bit deeper, actually, I would say this is more shallow, but apple cider vinegar, bit of water, apple cider vinegar with the mother, organic raw, after meals, twice a day, amazing. That can actually help because the acidic environment is really bad for parasites. But also it's really good for digestion. It helps you break down meats, helps your stomach settle after a meal. I would recommend apple cider vinegar for a whole bunch of reasons as well. It's also probiotic. Then you can also take a quarter. This is another one which I wouldn't necessarily always universally recommend, but can be good. Take a quarter teaspoon of baking soda once every evening into water. That's disgusting. There's the Arm & Hammer brand, which is all you need. A quarter teaspoon of that, take it, and that will literally kill parasites if you take that. It's awful, but it can do it. I've heard about enemas, and I can't really go into that, unfortunately. Apparently that is the killer for the parasite.
And for many things as well, yeah. But I not for me, man.
I'm not doing that. Sorry. But if you take these things and it kills them in the gut, and then you take some binding agents and it carries them out of the gut, then you don't need to worry about an enema, in theory. Some people argue with me and say that's the pure, method for health. But yeah, I'm not going to say
I'm going to add something to this. And for majority of the things that you mentioned, they are healthy either way. A fast is healthy either way, even longer fast. It can just do more good for you, even if you're not worried about parasites. So you can do these things for your health. Plus, if you have some parasites, you will kill them without having to be schizophrenic about it, So the same thing, for example, I'm actually going to take some clay because I know it's just general good for cleaning out, like you say, heavy metals and stuff like that. So if I also have something dead in me, great. And the thing that you also said about apple cider vinegar, exactly, for digestion, it's great. It's healthy. It's healthy for your, gut biome as well, I believe. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So, again, you can take this and baking soda or just what is the other name for baking soda? Yeah, soda basically.
Sodium bicarbonate.
Yeah, exactly. It is not that disgusting for me. I take it sometimes so that you cannot get as scared, because and it's pretty much you're making the water extremely alkaline, and it just purifies, everything, like just goes through you. And this is something that I don't take sometimes, just for health reasons as well. So you can try that out. And yeah, um, it doesn't have to be, it is scary, but you don't have to be scared of it. You can just take these healthy things and you can solve many problems just like that.
Yeah. And so nowadays I'm going to be doing this about once every 6 months, where I go through this herbal protocol. It's very cheap. You can get all three of these herbal supplements. You can the dosages are normally worked out fairly well as well, so you shouldn't worry about that too much. I think there's a supplement company called like Health for All. I'm not sponsored or anything, but that's the one I got. They have 21 dosages of each one, so it should last for a full cycle of this. And it's pretty cheap as well. It's really not expensive for what you're getting. Like a lot of different, it has all three in the correct dosages that you need, and they're on the right weighting and compression as well. So that's good. Now that supplement protocol, as I said, don't take it too long. Don't just take this for a long period of time, because it can have damaging effects on your organs if you take it for like months. But you're not supposed to. It's a 1 week off, 1 week on, then stop. Maybe do it again 6 months later or 12 months later. Doesn't matter too much, but that's how you do it. That's the one thing that I'd say is not like generally a healthy thing to do. Like, you shouldn't be taking these herbal supplements all the time. The rest of the things I said, those are actually really good. Apple cider vinegar is great. You can take that every day. I take it every single day, and it's amazing, especially for like thyroid health and metabolism as well. But also, as I said, digestion. And then with the binding agents, clay, zeolite clay specifically. There's also diatomaceous earth. I haven't done much research on that, but
I think I took that in the past. To be honest, I'm not sure.
Yeah, zeolite is the one that if it will pick up heavy metals and basically connect and magnetize to them and carry them out. That's really, really good, and also will kill parasites. But the thing with zeolite clay is that because of the fact that it's a sharp structure, it's basically in this specific structure with a shape which will, atomic shape, which will stick into things like parasites. It also can slightly scratch the gut lining and also the intestines. So I should disclaim that, because I'm not necessarily saying everyone should take this, but it's something I'm talking about for myself. When I took this, I didn't have any negative effects. I took this 4 times in 1 week, and it was completely fine. So I did not do this for months. I did not do this for weeks even. I did this a few times within a week, and I was completely fine. I didn't feel any negative effects from it. If you're a bit afraid of damaging your gut, especially if you have some gut issues, you can take spirulina instead. Spirulina will also be a binding agent, which carries heavy metals through, but it's very soft on the gut lining, so it's not going to do any damage. Additionally, spirulina has a lot of nutrients in it, which can be quite beneficial. It's disgusting, man. I'd rather eat clay than spirulina. It tastes awful, but there are certain benefits to it which I can't deny. So
I take a lot of glutamine nowadays, so I think my gut lining is better. Might just, I'll see, I'll decide, because I want to just take it, especially since I'm cutting, just to make myself even more healthy, And I'll just add this point about fasting. Fasting, if you should first do like a 16-hour fast. If you never fasted before, just skip a breakfast, stuff like that, and eat like at 2 p.m. The thing with fasting is that mentally it can get much easier if you are prepared for what is coming. So if Thomas said like you can try 72 hours, it can be horrible if that's like your first time. It can even be problematic if you don't know what you're experiencing. Like you can be dizzy, stuff like that. But I would recommend, almost just for purely mental benefits, like a 24-hour fast, just for you can try it. And then after you get used to it, you can get into 72 hours. I did it once. It was hard, but as long as you are not around people that are eating all the time, stuff, that it's pretty manageable in my experience. And if you say that can actually, like 72 hours, if that can completely kill most of the things, I'd actually think that is for me, that would be the easiest way to do it. No thinking, just don't eat for 3 days and that's it. But I guess it's different for everyone. For me, fasting is not that difficult because if I am aware that I'm not supposed to eat, then it's easier to resist. Then if I was just hungry, usually I would get much more pissed off because I know like I need to eat. But when I'm fasting, I'm like, I can chill now. I don't have to eat.
Yeah, I think most people are kind of pussies, actually, if I'm honest.
Yeah.
If they're not going to be able to consider this, like, if you're a man and you're listening to this podcast and you're afraid to do a fast, I don't know. Like, I often feel like I have to give delicate advice because I'm giving it to a large number of people.
Exactly.
But if I'm honest, like, maybe I shouldn't, because it wasn't that scary to do a 72-hour fast. Actually, like, you're going to be fine. Don't be a pussy.
Exactly.
People didn't. In history, how many times did your ancestors go days without eating because they couldn't find food? And they were fine. So are you really going to die if you don't eat for 4 hours? Like, geez, man. Man up and don't be like a complete bitch. That's all I'd say. Like, come on. Is it really that scary to not eat? I think most people are not afraid of the prospects of a 3-day fast if they actually have some balls going into it. Just decide not to do it. Tell your friends you're going to do it. Ones that will actually not criticize you for it, but ones that will respect you and say, wow, that's great. Good luck. That's the kind of person you should tell about it, and then report back. Say, how was it? Tell them about it. Maybe they'll be like, wow, that's pretty cool. Maybe I'll try it sometime. Maybe they'll try a 24-hour fast. Maybe start with a 24-hour, then do a 48 and see if you can do a 72. Now, I wouldn't say do all this within a few weeks. Maybe leave it a few months. But just, decide early in the year or maybe mid-year. Okay, I'm going to do this in this month. This is when I'll do it. And there you go. And do it. So you just follow through with your plan and see how it feels for you. For me, it was really difficult on day 3. I was quite mentally erratic, but it was worth it. I felt like amazing afterwards after I'd taken the first meal. And when you do break your fast after that, you want to have a very small meal in theory. For me, it was like a 2,000 calorie meal because I was just like so insanely excited by the prospect of eating food. I ate yogurt banana chips. So they were banana chips cooked in coconut oil, then dipped in yogurt. And it was the most delicious thing I've ever eaten in my life. It tasted like I was eating like chocolate biscuits or something. It was like incredible.
Yeah.
Like, it was amazing.
I think I broke my longer fast with watermelon or something like that. Oh man, you cannot imagine how sweet it was. But yeah, just if you're listening to this, so obviously for everything that we are saying, we are not medical experts, something like that. Do everything on your own, the research, but for fasting, just make sure that you have some salt, just some electrolytes, and that's it, because you can get very easily dehydrated. You can just flush everything out if you're drinking water, and you can get dizzy. You can even maybe you get up too fast, you can fall down. So be careful about that. Just have electrolytes and you'll be fine.
Yeah, I trained on the fasts.
Me too.
I wouldn't necessarily recommend that for everyone. See how you feel. Take it by with time and with some consciousness as well. But yeah, that's another thing. You should have a magnesium, a potassium, and a sodium source for salts. You shouldn't just have, and calcium. You shouldn't just have some kind of table salt. You also shouldn't maybe just have sea salt. Sea salt is great, or maybe Himalayan salt. But they only have trace forms of potassium and magnesium minerals. So if you can get an electrolyte supplement, which is just the pure salts, which has approximately, per gram, you want to have. So in a day, you want to have about 300 to 500 milligrams of magnesium. You want to have about 2,000 to 3,000 milligrams of potassium, which is really hard to get. It's way harder than that.
So hard.
And you want to have like 6 grams of sodium. So the ratio you want to have is something like 1 to 6 in the potassium. Nature Chad just showed me the you want to have
I'll just put the picture.
To be fair, I haven't actually found one that's like really rigorous.
True.
Other than
True.
It's just so overpriced. I'm sorry, Solbri, if you're listening. I'm sure you're not, but that is so freaking overpriced for what you can do. You can just get potassium salts and you can buy them. You can also buy magnesium salts. You can also then buy sodium and
there are also
calcium.
salts that are just have the reduced sodium, You can literally buy this in in health stores, and not a lot of people know about this. But those salts that have reduced sodium, they actually have more potassium and magnesium because they increase it.
Ah,
So it's very useful like that. And it's like
that's
cheap,
good.
man. I
Yes,
bought like for €3 like this bag, so amazing.
it should be really cheap because you don't need some kind of special like ancient deep salt. What you need is the compounds ultimately, and you need them to be water soluble. That's all. So um, that's all I'd say. Try and get something like that, like a decent form of magnesium and potassium. If you see this electrolyte supplement, you have to do your own research on this because there's so many different brands out there.
Mm-hmm.
But if you find your supplement and you look at the ingredients, and it has 6 grams, work it out, do a bit of mathematics. If it had 6 grams of sodium in it, so do the multiplication. Okay, per 100 grams, it's 90 grams of sodium. If it only has, for that amount that you would get 6 grams of sodium, if it only has 500 milligrams of potassium for that weight, then it's not a good supplement. You need to have about 1,000 to 2,000 milligrams of potassium if you were going to get 6 grams of sodium. Then you need to work out how much magnesium you would get. Would that be about 300 to 500 milligrams for the 6 grams of sodium that you get? If that's the case, then it's a really good supplement, and it's quite hard to find that. But if you can find that, that's amazing, because if you were to drink the correct amount of sodium for the day, you would also have the correct amount of potassium and magnesium for the day, which is, for some reason, they just overdose the sodium in these things. They underdose the potassium and magnesium, and it's a complete waste of the supplement, because those are the actual things that you really want to find, is the things that you don't get in normal food. And then you can start having that in your water every day. After you finish your fast, you can have it in your water every day, and not just have it in meals. It's really, really good.
Oh man, absolutely, especially for pre-workout and during workout, just having the electrolytes, it can really change your workouts, man. It can you get a better pump, you get better focus even, so it's great. And let this be the perfect segue to the most important topic of our life, and that is working out, man. So I don't know how we can even start this, but let's just put it like this. Do you remember where you were like 2 years ago when we first recorded? What were you doing? What was the trend looking like? And how has it changed now? How has your physique improved? How has everything changed?
Yeah. So I remember, because it's quite a pivotal moment in my gym history, which is where I just got back, to the gym. I was 2 or 3 weeks into training at the gym after I'd been training at home every day. And my home training, because of lockdowns, had been something like this. I had a pair of parallel bars for dips. I had 2 20-kilo dumbbells, which I didn't change the weight of. I just kept that weight. I had a pull-up bar, and I had a band. And so what I did is I did face pulls with a pull-up bar and a band, where I would hook the band into the pull-up bar and then do pulls with it, face pulls. I would do, that was not the center, and I would do a 3-day split. One of the days, actually, was it 3 days? No, it was a 4-day split. One of the days, this is I know it so well because it was my every single day. I didn't take rest days. I just did 4 days on rotation. So one day would be, I would do 8 sets of dips, weighted dips with a chain, and I would go up to 40 kilos at 100 kilos weight. So I would do 140 kilos for almost 10. I think I got 9 reps as my PR, which I was really happy with. 140 kilo dips. I can't even bench much more than 225. If you took me to the gym today, I would probably get 225 for maybe 2 reps. I'm not that strong relative to mine. It's because my
you should not mix pounds and kilos, because now people will think you can only bench 225 kilos since you said 140.
140 kilos is 315 pounds. Sorry, you're right. Regardless, my arms are very long, so I actually look a lot bigger than my the amount of weight I can technically bench. But when I do dips, I'm really strong because I'm put into a better leverage position. I know this podcast is we're gonna have to take a split, but I'll keep going until it sort of ends, and then we can continue on. So I would do dips 8 sets, and then I would do a bunch of tricep push downs with the band and the pull-up bar, and that was it. That was my full day. I would just do a ton of volume, 8 sets. Then the next day I would do pull-ups. I would do as many pull-ups as I could for 150 or 200 reps or something like that. I would do an insane, like 20 sets or something like that. I would do as many pull-ups as I could for like 20 sets, and I would take about 4 or 5 minutes rest. So it would be like an hour and a half of just pull-ups. It was insane. Then I would do, on the next day, I would do squats, and I would do 25 reps, 2 purple bands wrapped around me from my feet to my shoulders, and 40 kilos with my feet elevated. And it was the most insane leg training I've ever done in my life. And my legs blew up from that. It was crazy because I was just doing so much volume. And then I would go outside into the garden and I would do 10 sets of lunges up and down the garden, 10 sets of lunges there to back, which was about 25 meters. So it was a lot. And then I would, we're going to finish the podcast. But basically, then I would do curls, superset with overhead press with 20 kilos, so 45 pounds. And I would do as many overhead presses as I could, and I would superset that with as many curls as I could, and then do that for 8 sets. So that was my program, just as I got onto the podcast with you last time.
Yeah.
And I'll continue what I'm doing nowadays on our next recording. To see each other in a moment. Okay.
Yep.
Yeah, you were saying curls and overhead press.
Yeah. So I would do 20 kilo curls for as many reps as possible, and then 20 kilo overhead press for as many reps as possible. That was it. Like I just didn't try to increase the reps over time, like with that exercise. And I remember having a notebook in my bedroom, which just was like my torture notebook, where I would just write down how many reps I'd done between sets, and it was insane. It was actually quite fun, that training. But then I obviously got back to the gym, so I could do a whole bunch of other things. Within a few months of that, I think I got to a 4-plate deadlift for multiple reps. Then I got a 3-plate squat for multiple reps. Pretty happy about that. And then I actually got really strong using my dip strength to do bench. I was a lot more focused around strength then. I think nowadays I've become pretty much what you could call a pure bodybuilding focused lifter, where now a lot of people misconstrue natural bodybuilding to be similar to testosterone, steroid bodybuilding, where you just do reps and like lightweight. Ultimately, if you're a natural bodybuilder, you need to be getting stronger. But the ways that you get stronger are through, first of all, higher reps. So talking the 6 to 12 rep range on compound lifts, and you do need to do a lot of volume. And also it's about where you're getting stronger. It's not going to be these it's not going to be just the squat and the deadlift, and you don't need to care about numbers. You need to care about the contraction of a muscle under tension, and the tension will be decided by how much you need to contract the muscle most effectively. So this is a completely different philosophy to powerlifting, where you're just focused about getting the weight from A to B. What you notice about powerlifters a lot of the time is that they tend to have undeveloped arms. They tend to have much bigger trunk, core, chest. They may have bigger shoulders, but their arms are undeveloped. They also have an imbalanced back, where they have a lot more lower and mid back development and not much upper back development. They have undeveloped calves a lot of the time because they're not really using their calves just for stability. They care about performance, fair enough, but as a bodybuilder, I care about performance in other lifts, and I'm not restricted to just caring about SBD. I don't really do the deadlift and the squat anymore. I do variations of them. I do Romanian snatch grip deadlifts, and I do Zercher squats, or even Smith machine squats with my hack squats. So I don't even care about those lifts. I'm sorry, guys, but my legs I found were way overdeveloped relative to my upper body. I've had overdeveloped legs for my entire lifting journey because I think it's something to do with nucleus overload. But basically, my legs are just like they grow off of one small leg day a week. I will grow my legs way faster than my upper body.
Same, actually.
And as a result of that, I need to work on my upper body more to actually have balance. And I care about balance. I care about having a well-developed, overall development of the physique. I've really focused on my arms a lot because I have very long arms and very, very bad arm genetics for growth. So I've really been caring about my curls and my triceps. And not a lot of powerlifting focused people will just say, no, just do your heavy presses and your triceps will grow. It's just not the case. If you really want to grow your arms, isolation, you need to be putting it as much. It's not an accessory lift. is putting as much intensity and focus into your arm training, into your shoulder training, as you do for your lift training, like your chest press or your or your squat, something like that. Additionally, I'm much more open-minded about Smith machines, about machines generally, about using just unconventional lifts, that kind of stuff. I love that stuff if it's effective.
Absolutely.
I have no hang-ups. I have no scruples when it comes to finding the things that work with me, finding the things that will allow me to train late into my 20s, into my 30s, into my 40s and look great and not injure me. I had a back injury from deadlifts because I just cared about getting stronger, and I had great form, but I had overuse injuries, which I ignored because I wanted to get my numbers up, and I cared way too much about my numbers. And I found that if I wanted to grow from using a hip hinge, then doing a stretch oriented lift like a Romanian deadlift is actually more effective than conventional deadlifts. I'm sorry, guys, but if you're not stretching and lowering the weight under load and then coming back up and using that part of the range of motion, if you're just getting it up and then dropping it because it's a deadlift, you don't need to lower it down slowly, then you're not going to grow your hamstrings and your glutes and your low back and your posterior chain more generally as effectively. And people care way too much about not using straps because they think that if you have strong grip strength, then your forearms will be big. That's not true. Your forearms grow from doing a lot of forearm volume. Maybe if you do want to do farmer carries, that's good. But you also want to do wrist curls. You want to do wrist extensions. You want to use your hands in different planes of motion. But you can use straps for any back exercise and grow your back better and more effectively, because the limiting factor in the exercise is not going to be your hands. So my philosophy around training nowadays, I'm very high volume oriented. High volume mostly to failure, which most people would say, well, you can't mix volume and intensity and get optimal results. It's like, well, actually, I found that if I take every set to failure in a safe way, not using these just conventional barbell lifts, but if I'm using, for example, dumbbells or machines, I can take every single set to failure, absolute failure, true technical failure, and do multiple sets and stay strong and do multiple extra exercises after that, and then recover well because I have perfect sleep, I don't drink any alcohol, and I eat perfectly. So my recovery is on point right now, and it will be for months and months and maybe even years. And I'm going to make the most of that by training 6 days a week for over an hour nowadays. I use my lunch break, and I also train before work, so I have a good amount of time to train nowadays. I'm going to be doing that a lot more. And I'm going to make the most out of my ability to just make gains. I'm going to really, really try and grow. The things I've noticed in the last year that I've grown the most, my arms have grown up to 16 inches. They used to be they used to be 14 inches, maybe 14 and a half. For the first 3 years of me lifting, it was insane how small they were. And now they're up to 16.
That is a good number, yeah.
Yeah, cold flex 16. They can get up to 17 if I do a lot of work and then measure that. I want to get them to 17 cold flexed. My chest is a lot more balanced. I have a lot more upper chest. I remember 2-3 years ago, I didn't have an upper chest.
Same.
All of my chest was just my lower. I had no development of the upper chest. Now I'd say I have a pretty balanced chest. My delts are a lot more developed, and I don't do any pressing. Now I'm going to start increasing my pressing a little bit more, but I found that my delts kind of overtake the chest if I'm doing too much bench press. If I'm doing a bench press,
great.
My delts overtake a lot of the time. So if I'm doing a lot of overhead pressing and chest pressing, my delts will overdevelop and my chest will not be very active. So I try and focus more on my chest than my delts, and I do a lot of lateral raises, and I do machine overhead pressing mostly. Then in terms of my back development, really focused on pull-ups right now. I was also focused on upper back development a lot earlier this year, and I've really started to develop the details like the teres major, the rear delts a lot more. So my back is actually probably one of my strongest body parts right now. But yeah, I'm really trying to focus on strength for pull-ups, for example, weighted pull-ups. I'm trying to get up to 150 kilos, which is about 335, 325 total weight for my pull-ups. And I'm currently at 145 kilos, which is 320 pounds, I think. So that's where I'm at right now. It's my 1 rep max. I also do higher reps, and really I got back to pull-ups 3 weeks ago. I'm also trying to broaden the rib cage through developing the lats, but also literally broadening the rib cage. It's possible. So I'm taking pullovers extremely seriously right now. I'm trying to get up to heavy pullovers with perfect full range of motion. And powerlifters don't care about that, but bodybuilders do. And if you get really strong in pullovers, your lower lats will develop beautifully, and it flows so amazingly. And that doesn't matter whatsoever for a powerlifter. But if you get a strong pullover, I have no doubt that you will get a huge amount of functional strength from that. This is the thing I hate. This is a long monologue, but I think it's valuable. The thing I hate about powerlifters who criticize bodybuilding is that they act like we're not functional. I actually think that bodybuilding is more functional in many ways. Like natural bodybuilding is more functional in many ways than powerlifting, because we're putting ourselves through huge different planes of motion, countless different joints are being worked in different ways. We're trying to hit muscles and develop them. We're also trying to stretch as much as we can. We're trying to become stronger, but in way more than just a hip hinge, a knee flexion, and a chest press and horizontal flexion. We're not just doing three things and then everything else is an accessory. We're doing everything at once, fully focused on total body development. And as a result of that, we do get a lot of carryover to a whole bunch of different physical activities. And when you put a bodybuilder under a squat, bench, and deadlift, they tend to be pretty strong. So I would say, I'm not saying that one is superior to the other.
It's just that minimalism is a problem in any type of lifting journey. Minimalism. That's it.
I'm not saying that bodybuilders will be stronger than powerlifters. Powerlifters will be stronger than bodybuilders, but bodybuilders may have a different form of physical development because they spend so much more time on so many different, activities. There's also a lot of GPP work in both of these, which can be amazing for health. So I think what I'm really trying to do here is defend bodybuilding from powerlifting, rather than say that bodybuilding is better than powerlifting or something like that, because I think people look down on it. They say, oh, you only care about looks, you're going to be unfunctional, you're going to be weak. No, if you're a serious natural bodybuilder, you will actually have huge health benefits to this. It's probably the healthiest form of existence to be a natural bodybuilder who cares about having some level of like general fitness as well. If you do those two things at once, which you can, you're going to be in this for the long game. You're going to have a great looking physique, you're going to have a great metabolism, a great diet, you're going to be defended from like diabetes and all kinds of different diseases. There's an ocean of different benefits that this kind of pursuit actually has for your health, which I think is massively important. And that's why I'm in this for now, thinking about my later 20s, thinking about my 30s, my 40s, my 50s, thinking about how I can stay in this game, not damage myself, not come out of it late 20s and feel like I've broken everything, because I have, and injured everything. I want to actually be healthy for raising children as well. And that's where my mind's at right now. It's about health and looking amazing, and also having strength. So it's strength in different movement patterns and in different exercises than the ones that may injure you if you're just trying to get numbers.
I'd say for that, I think, and also I don't know if you do this in your programming, but rotating exercises like every few weeks, I think is key for this. Not sticking to the same, because our body doesn't like patterns. Everything where we just do the same thing, body gets kind of tight. It kind of gets into this. There's a name for it, like overload or something. I don't know, but basically, it hurts the body, and not only that, but it stalls the progress as well. So I just think that changing, not necessarily everything, but just maybe a slight variation. Maybe it's just doing a neutral pull-up instead of a regular Y. That's it. Or maybe just doing like you said, machine overhead press instead of a dumbbell one.
All you need to do.
That's it. So if I show up to the gym, I used to be like, okay, got to get my bench press up. I'll do my flat barbell bench press today. And then I would be like, well, actually, you listen to powerlifters and they tell you, if you want to get your bench up, you need to be benching 2, 3, maybe even 4
That's
times a week.
That's what my friend says as well, a powerlifter.
And I'm not strawmanning powerlifters right now. They will tell you, I've heard this countless times from powerlifting coaches, if you want to get your bench press up, you need to bench 3 times a week. And if you bench 3 times a week seriously, as your first lift, because you want to get it the most fresh, you're going to screw your rotator cuffs up. You're not going to grow your chest that much, like because you're not hitting your chest through the full. You're not expressing it through the full multiplicity of potential movement patterns that it can. So if nowadays I was so addicted to that, I was like, I have to do the bench press 3 times a week. No, I don't even need the bench numbers. I need to become stronger over time, but I need to become more capable with my chest by doing higher reps, higher volume, being able to take more total workload over a session, doing multiple exercises. And so nowadays, if I show up to the gym, I might start with the Smith machine. I'm sorry, guys, but I might start with the Smith machine incline bench. As long as it's done properly, it's actually an amazing exercise. I might start with the dumbbell incline bench. I might start with the the dumbbell flat bench. I don't care. What I care about is am I taking my chest through enough workload? And nowadays, yeah, I'll obviously do barbell bench press probably about once a week, but I'll also do a bunch of other different things as my first priority. And yeah, so if I show up, I might do the Romanian deadlift. I might do a snatch grip Romanian deadlift. I might do more barbell rows on one day. I might focus more on I want to increase the skill set with this. I do want to get stronger and get better with it, but it's rotation is so valuable. And once you sort of get your head out of these 3 lifts, which everyone's addicted to, you actually become a lot more capable of becoming stronger in different planes of motion, and also just not having this dogma which is kind of infecting your training, in my opinion. Most people are not even powerlifters. They just want to get stronger and then feel good about that. They're not going to a meet or anything like that. They're just kind of like passive powerlifters. If you actually want to look good, then don't just be a powerlifter. Maybe consider being a bit more flexible with your training, and maybe those accessories that you tack on at the end of the lift for 3x10, maybe that hypertrophy work you're doing, which you put like 10% of effort into, maybe that's the stuff that you actually want to take seriously, a lot more seriously, if you want to really see like personal physical development. So yeah, that's my take on lifting, how I think about it nowadays. I have a very different philosophy to 2 years ago. I think bodybuilding has really carved itself out. Natural bodybuilding has really carved itself out in the last 2 years.
Beautiful community, yeah. Great people.
Yeah, it's much stronger community. And it was infected by powerlifting for a very long period of time.
I agree. And something that I will add on to these last points that you said is that, for example, I also like, or everyone likes having a bigger bench, bigger overhead press, stuff like that, bigger squat. But the thing is, I also do not almost do those variations at all. Like maybe every month or every 2 months I will do a pure version, like pure overhead press or pure bench, because everything that you do, if it's the same muscles working and you're getting stronger at it, that will increase your pure lifts, your raw lifts. So for example, if I'm getting stronger at the, let's say, anterior delt press, or the like high incline overhead press, I know that I will also get stronger at the regular overhead press. The same thing is with, I don't know, if I'm doing a lot of you can say lunges, for example, lunges or split squats, I know that my squat in general will grow, but it is about targeting the weaknesses. For example, I have now a very strong lockout from doing a lot of push pressing, but now I'm focused on the lower end, like doing a lot of paused movements, like a paused overhead press and stuff like that. I lift less weight, but I'm getting stronger. And then when I move on to the regular overhead press, I'll be like, oh my god, 5 kilo PR out of nowhere. But it's not a surprise, because the same muscles are being worked. And this is what people don't realize, that you do not have to do the exercise that you want to get better at. Actually, you can do everything, but just constantly keep improving the strength of it. And as you get stronger, everything gets stronger. Strength is strength. That is it. Strength is strength. And another point, go on.
No, please continue. You got another point, that's fine.
Yeah, and now I missed it. Go on.
I've destroyed you, I've derailed you.
Absolutely.
You said strength is strength. You were talking about like increasing your overhead press, for example, by doing anterior delt press instead, and finding pause pressing benefits. Did you have a...
Yeah, pretty much. Also, people. No, I completely lost it, man. No worries. I will. If I remember it when you start talking about things.
Yeah, I hope so. Okay. Well, I'll make my point anyway. So, what I was going to say is, essentially, that my mindset is maybe different to even really caring about the numbers on those lifts anymore. When I go into the gym and I choose to do an exercise like for example, the barbell bench press, it's nice. It's a nice ego boost to see that it went up. But what I think is more important is selecting the right weight for the purposes that you have. So if you ever look at like a professional, yes, steroided bodybuilder, but like an elite level bodybuilder who actually does train well, not just benefiting from the steroids by doing high reps and low weight, somebody who actually has to train hard because they're about to compete. Those people will show up to the gym and they'll take maybe a 4-plate bench or something like that. They're very strong, but they're not doing that 4-plate bench to prove that they can do it. They're doing the 4-plate bench and perfectly using that tool to contract their muscles under that load.
Yeah, it's crazy to see how they control the weight, literally.
Yeah,
And it's for
any
place.
bodybuilder who's just trying to prove to the camera that they can move that weight, they're not serious, because they're using that weight. Yeah, they're massively strong. Also, natural bodybuilders should be massively strong, but we're not strong so that we can move the weight. We're strong. We're moving the weight to move the weight through, move our muscles through the weight, contracting our muscles under that tension. And yeah, we become strong from that because the muscles ultimately move the weight. If you develop your muscle mass, the muscle mass becomes more capable of moving weight. Yes, you can get stronger, but ultimately the way that you get stronger after your neurons adapt to moving weight is by gaining muscle mass. So both are very close, but there are different priorities. Strength for 2 reps, for example, strength for 1 rep is way more neural than strength for 8 reps. You can't use your brain to bench 8 reps of 80 kilos. I'm sorry, 90 kilos, 100 kilos. You can't just use your brain to do that. You have to develop your muscle mass to be able to do that. Slowly, controlled. You don't have to fully lock out, but you do have to contract your chest if you're going to do that. And every other lift is like this. One of the reasons I like pull-ups, for example, is because pull-ups really encourage a form which is muscle focused rather than form focused. If you come all the way down with a pull-up and go all the way up, you can't cheat that rep up. You can't ego lift that weight. You can do that with a row, for example, or even the deadlift. You can ego that lift up by hitching and stuff like that. But you can't do that with a pull-up. If you got a weighted pull-up, okay, fair enough, you can swing, but if you're not swinging, then it's an amazing exercise for developing your lats, your mid-back, your biceps.
To be fair, a lot of people also struggle with using too much arms in the pull-ups. Even though they're going all the way up and down, they're still pulling all the way with forearms. So it's also about that mind-muscle connection.
That's true.
I just grab the bar, and my lats are just whoosh, just this perfect moving pattern. I cannot describe it. I love how pull-ups feel, because it's just like I shift my scapulars a bit, get a bit of an angle, and then whoop, all pull-ups, all lats, and it's an amazing feeling. But you need to learn this.
Good. Yeah, that's true. That's true, actually. Yeah, I didn't really think about that, but that's the other thing, is that people who preach pure compounds will find eventually that one of their muscles will overtake if they do pure compounds and purely think about their numbers. And what happens at that point is that, even though your biceps are doing the most they can during a pull-up, for example, if your biceps are not leveraged to be able to be maximally contracted relative to your lats, doing more pull-ups will make your imbalance worse. You'll have more overdeveloped lats and less developed biceps. And basically what people say is, no, just do loads of compounds, focus on compounds, and do you like isolations, but that's not important. The fact is that actually everyone has a different body, and everyone's muscles will contract differently during any compound movement. You might have a majority of the tension on your delts during an overhead press, or maybe on your triceps, or maybe your triceps will overtake and it will be like a pure tricep extension when you do an overhead press, and it won't really hit your delts very much. And this is why you need to really focus on what's being hit more, and then focus on the thing which is going to be undeveloped if you only focus on the compounds. Now, get stronger, but also balance that out with a lot of isolation, which is taken very, very seriously. Now, when I say isolations, everyone just thinks, oh yeah, you do 20 reps, you move it around, and then you're done. No, like when I talk about an isolation, I'm talking about you fully contract that single muscle under the tension, and you do that until you go to failure. And you fully contract, and then you maybe even do a few more cheat reps afterwards if it's like a lateral raise or something. You can do that. And
a lot of the times that will be painful, man. That will be so painful. People don't realize it. Like before, you were saying that, and I think you still think about this like this, that gym is not something hard, it's something fun. But at some points when you're truly serious like that, man, it can be true pain. It can really be true pain. But this is the good pain,
Absolutely agreed. It's completely different to the way that most people treat it, in my opinion. To really focus on isolations. And the other thing with isolations is that people think that you have to do high reps with isolations. It depends on the lift. If you're doing a lift, which would be dangerous to do low reps with, for example, like a preacher curl, you do want to do higher reps with a preacher curl. Because there's a lot of stretch in there. Yes, you want to increase the reps, but we're still talking about 8 to 12. We're not talking about 25 reps. And you don't need to do those 20 plus reps a lot of the time, unless you're going for a very specific type of stimulus. But for example, like an overhead tricep extension with a dumbbell, that could be quite low reps. You could do like 5 to 10 reps with that and get amazing stimulus, like 6 to 8 reps, really good. There are other lifts, which I think are really good for lower reps isolations. Like let me think. Like a strict curl, for example, really good example. If you're standing against a wall and you do your strict curls, you can do low reps with that, and it can be a strength-focused exercise for your biceps.
Yeah.
And as long as it is strict, you will grow your biceps from that very seriously.
I got a great example as well with the tricep extension, like just being purely straight and then having to extend the weight. I find great on low reps, like 5 reps, great strength builder for triceps, just pushing the pure, because you cannot really, unless you lean, you cannot really use anything else but the triceps.
Yeah, it's an isolation. That's really what we want to focus at. And if you come to the end of this, after a few years, and you look at the natural bodybuilding focused trainer, you'll find that they have amazing tricep strength, they have amazing bicep strength, they have amazing delt strength, they have amazing chest strength, they have amazing lat strength, they have amazing rhomboid, trap strength, and they have good leg strength because they've been doing leg exercises that are really focused on like strength development. And then if they want to start doing powerlifting, they'll be great at powerlifting because they just have to train their neurons to be able to fire in that way. But the powerlifter is not superior to that person because they move these weights. They'll both look good, by the way, but it's just about balance. And if you're a bodybuilder, you do want to focus more on the balance of your physique. And it is something that a natural can do, because your arms just do not get developed if the only thing you care about is your bench press. And, your arms will just look like trash. You'll look like I know the YouTuber Natural Hypertrophy talks about this. He talks about the spider physique, where you have an overdeveloped trunk and no arms and no legs, because all you do is use your glutes, your chest, and your lower back. It looks terrible, to be honest. And I think most people don't want to look like that. They want to put a t-shirt on and kind of fill it out, and they want to have nice arms. And that's not a bad thing. It's not a dishonorable thing. It's great, because arms are extremely important in life. If you have weak arms, you're not going to be very functional. Even if you only care about functionality, So that's my philosophy on training nowadays. It's I'm a bodybuilder, first. I'm not really focused on like powerlifting, but I take training extremely seriously. I'm training for 5, 6, 7 hours a week. On the days that I don't train, I do work at home. I train at home because I've got dumbbells here. Like, I do a lot of work, and I think most people who are like really focused on wanting to develop a physique, if you really, really want to get the most you can get, then don't fall for the sort of minimalism trap.
Exactly.
More work in the gym and more work in training will translate to more gains. It's not the case that you do less work and make more gains, unless you're overtraining. And this is a joke, most people are not overtraining. If what you're doing is undereating, or you're undersleeping, or you're overeating crap, which is inflammatory for your body, you're not overtraining. You're just destroying your body, and then feeling.
You're getting junk volume in. That's also important. If you are overtraining, that's mostly the case of junk volume, because you are not focusing on the muscle. You're just doing reps and doing like 20 sets of reps, 20 sets for arms every 2 days. That is junk volume. That's something that you can get overtrained on. But other than that, I completely agree. Yeah.
I would say that overtraining is much more likely for people who are doing powerlifting, where you're doing these massive systemic exercises for very low reps, for very large numbers of time, very high frequency.
Yeah.
That's where you can get overtraining. But bodybuilders are not focused on damaging their joints and like pushing their joints through as much as they possibly can. They're interested in damaging their muscles chronically enough to increase chronic growth and chronic over adaptation. That's what you want to do. So for a bodybuilder, I'm selecting exercises. As I said, sometimes I like machines more than maybe I'll hit dumbbells. You don't get these overuse injuries, but you also you also you don't ever put your joints through a range of motion which you know is going to like actually damage them, because you don't want to damage your joints. You want to stay healthy. So yeah, the overtraining thing is much more an issue when you're overtraining specific exercises rather than specific movement patterns, such as the chest extension or the sort of back extension. It's all these things. It's actually much better if we're doing bodybuilding for joint health, because you don't care. You don't care about your numbers. You ultimately don't need to care about your numbers.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's my philosophy on training. To put it short.
Yeah, and it's also the only times that I experienced like overtraining symptoms is when my nervous system would crash. When I would go so heavy, when I would do like 5 attempts at PR or something like that. And then for a week straight, I just couldn't perform. Like I would feel completely done, burnt off. But other than that, yeah, I never experienced true overtraining. Especially since I'm someone that's doing a lot of cardio nowadays. Like I'm doing a lot of cardio now, like almost every day. Not tons, not like I'm getting completely wrecked, but a lot of time. But I'm also work training at the gym around 6 hours a week. Even though it is 3 times a week, it's still 2 hours workouts. It's still a lot of exercises, and I'm fine. I'm perfectly fine, even though I'm cutting right now. So it just goes to show your body is adapting, number one, at all times, and if your recovery is on point, you'll be fine, man. You'll be fine.
Yeah.
And
overtraining is a lot like tanning. It's the same thing. If you're gonna, if it's like late spring and you've not gone outside yet, and it's a really sunny day, and you go outside for an hour or 2 hours, you're gonna get burned. But if you spend early spring going outside, walking around, getting some sun on your skin every single day, or even just for 5-10 minutes, and then it's a really sunny day in late spring and you go outside, you won't get burned. Even if you spend like 4 or 5 hours outside, you may be fine.
Yeah.
Unless then the other thing is, unless you literally go to a desert and you completely fry your skin for hours, even if you had a base tank, you're not going to be safe. So basically overtraining is the same. It's the shock exposure to insane amounts of work or volume or intensity that you were not prepared for. And tell me, can you, if you don't get a sunny day in the gym, you choose how much work you do. You choose, you show up to the gym and decide how much you do. So if you're not going to go into the gym and literally terrify your joints into dying, you're going to be fine. Do what you can do, push yourself a bit, but don't push yourself so much that you break something, and you'll be completely fine. And you can actually do this every day. Most people who are farmers, for example, traditional farmers, they spend like 10 hours in the sun every day, 12 hours in the sun in the summer. And yeah, they wear their hat and they cover their skin up, but they were completely fine. They're not getting burned. And that's because they are, used to that amount of volume of UV radiation. It's even better with the gym because you're only training for a couple of hours most of the time. I train for like 1 hour, 1.5 hours max a day. And, I really focus on recovery. I'm never going to get overtrained if I keep doing this. I don't take deload weeks. I think that deload weeks are a powerlifting thing. They're not for bodybuilding. If you want to increase the sensitivity of your muscles, then you need to take supplements and sleep better. But training more is always going to lead to more gains. I'm sorry, man. There's no easy way about this. If you want to make more gains, then you need to do more work. And there you go. I'd say that's probably everything for me when it comes to training. There's more. We can go into more details about specific things, specific lifts and stuff like that. We were talking about that in that podcast with for Carolus Press. But I think otherwise on the philosophy of training, I think we've both sort of discussed that fairly well.
Yeah. I can just add on some things about my philosophy because it has changed as well. First of all, you can see how much I tan. Look, this is where the watch is. So I'm also tanning good. So I'm also progressing well. But it's funny because you can see how much I'm in the gym by my tan because it's outside.
That's true.
My philosophy, and this is recent, is that I actually have started taking also seriously my arms and stuff like that. Because it was also for me, okay, I'm doing the press, I'm doing the pull motion, arms are just there. I'll just go through them. But the first time that I actually started focusing on arms was when I was pursuing the 100 kilo push press because I needed that lockout strength. So triceps became extremely important. the isolation, the school crushers, all of these things became extremely important. So I focused on that. And only recently, even just by talking to you, I realized, yeah, my biceps also need that love, they need that care to get a balanced physique. But for me, my philosophy is more about, I'm also very, I'm little bit more strength based than you, in terms of, I do heavier reps. I like 3 reps, I like 5 reps, I even go for 1 rep maxes. I enjoy the feeling, I enjoy lifting heavy. That's my thing, that's how I get my mental health in check. And but other than that, you train a split, I train full body. I train now 3 times a week, full body split. And before I was having a similar thing as you, where I would do intensity and volume in the same session. So intensity maybe 6-8 reps for first few exercises, and then go higher on the next ones, but still the same, power in everything. But nowadays I have an intensity day where I do almost every lift heavy. And this is what we were talking about. Even the tricep, even the bicep, I'm going heavy, because if you're gonna go with studies, the latest studies show that everything between 5 to even 30 reps, and you go above failure or next to failure, you are going to grow. You're going to signal your body to grow. So this is something that I recently learned, but this is how I've been training. So yeah, for example, I will do a heavy press movement. I will do a secondary press, and that is usually for my chest, just so it stays, because I'm all about shoulders, because you and I are similar in this sense that we have clavicles that are not that as wide, and I like getting shoulders because it makes me look normal relatively. But yeah, so that's always my main press, and this is why. And it's very simple. Why is it my main press? Well, the first exercise is usually your most powerful exercise. You have the most energy and you can focus the most. So for me, if I want to build bigger shoulders, that's where I will fatigue myself the most. That's my first exercise. If I'm in next cycles, when I want to increase my chest, the chest will be the first exercise, and just with this simple switch, it will grow more. This is what I found, other than that, yeah, I'm also focused on pull-ups now. I'm trying to increase my strength there, just because it's something that has been a weakness of mine all of this time. This is also something that changed in my 2 years since we recorded. I haven't focused on my weaknesses, I just focused on my strengths, and that's how you get an unbalanced physique. So doing a lot of arms now, chest is, I don't care about it that much, so I'm just maintaining it. But a lot of arms, a lot of these movements that I'm bad at, pull-ups. For 3 years or even 4 years of my training journey, all I did was like 5 reps of pull-ups. That's it. That's all I could do. That's what I stick to it, And only now am I doing weighted more, I'm getting about 10 reps, stuff like that, which I'm very proud of, because it was always hard for me. So that's amazing. And I mean, I touched upon my philosophy a little bit with the things that I talked to you about, just rotating the movements, being because it's healthy for your joints, because it's healthy for your body, so it doesn't get used to it. Training on every rep scheme, because muscles, the type of fibers and stuff like that respond differently. And yeah, just splitting it like Monday, Wednesday, Friday, right? So just that 2 days rest, but in between that, I have cardio. Obviously, I do a lot of cardio nowadays, and you can do it. And I think we'll stop the recording now, and I'll just talk a bit about that. And but yeah, cardio, you can absolutely do it, even though you're lifting heavy, even though you're progressing. You just need to be very smart about it, and you need to know your body. But let me end the recording here. So about cardio, for me, it is first of all about adaptability. You need to go slowly, and you need to start slowly changing your training, in terms of that. Maybe you start going for runs, it's just 5 minutes runs, then it's 7 minutes, 10 minutes, because your body is adaptable. Your body is meant to do cardio activity, and it's obviously very healthy. So just about adaptability, but also about when you do it. Because honestly, look at this. So you would assume if I train Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that I train Tuesday and Thursdays cardio and stuff like that. Not true. I do cardios on a day that I'm lifting weights because I want to maximize my recovery on those rest days. And this is key. I would rather be completely dead one day and then rest, than constantly fatigue my body, and after a while I will get slowly overtrained. You know, it's hard, but I will slowly lose performance. So for me it is, some people like to train cardio in the morning, you know, because it's like fasted or something. No. Lifting weights is priority, and then afternoon I can do whatever I want. I can do running, I can do rowing, I can do sparring. It will affect me, but again, tomorrow I am better. Another thing is, depending on the day that I do the cardio, it's a specific. If I am lifting heavy, I will also do a different type of cardio. If I'm lifting lighter, I will do different type of cardio. This is also very interesting because a lot of people just assume, you do cardio. No. For example, if I'm having, today is a light day, which means I'm moderate on intensity and on volume. It's not like on both, not one extreme. That means that I will also do a moderate cardio. So maybe it will be lower pace rowing. It will still be fatiguing, but on a lower pace, you know. When I'm doing a volume day, I might go for a run. I might go running quicker. And when I'm doing intensity days, I might do something that powerlifters would call GPP. I might do some racking, I might do some carries, stuff like that. Working my conditioning, but adjusting it to the type of fatigue that I'm experiencing. See how it works. See how you can be very smart about it, be very fit, and kind of improve yourself in both spectrums. No, it's just about resting. It's just about managing. And now I'm going to train MMA soon, when I end my cut. And you know what I'm going to do? Because that will be much more taxing. I will switch to weights 2 times a week. I will still make progress. I will just do more. The total volume of the week will slightly be less, but it doesn't matter because I will still have recovery. I will still have everything that I want, and I will maintain a lean look. So it is all about being smart about it and very, very specific to yourself. And we can get into later, if you want, about how cardio can actually improve your
weightlifting performance.
Yeah, okay. So my approach to cardio is basically a lot of walking. I'm blessed to live in an area of the world which is extremely hilly. So you can just at 90 kilos, 95. Well, in the last year I've been between 95 and 103 kilos. So the fact that I'm very tall as well means that I've managed to stay very lean at that weight. But walking up a hill is like a 70 kilo person rucking with 30 kilos, right? It kind of works like that. So I'll do a bit of rucking as well. Like, for example, yesterday I did some rucking. But what I try and do is walk a lot and walk quickly as well. So my form of cardio is that when I can actually run really effectively. So I've got good legs for running. So if I start running, for example, if I need to get a train or something and I'm late for it or a bus, I'll run and I'm completely fine. Completely fine running. So my actual base form of cardio is literally just walking up things very quickly. I walk up hills all the time, but I don't do any like dedicated forms of cardio. I do things like rucking as well. Personally, I just don't have the patience. One of the reasons I never really got into fitness as a younger person is because I just don't have the patience to do cardio. Like, I can do it for a short period of time, but I do not have the attention span to sit there for 30 minutes and do any form of cardio or stand for 30 minutes and run for 30 minutes. I just cannot motivate myself to do it. I've got into phases where I did more running, and I got off 23-minute 5K the first time I ever did it, which I've never done a 5K before, and I got 23 minutes.
That shows how good you are, how naturally good you are at it.
Yeah, I probably could have got very good if I'd really taken it seriously, but for running, because I've always been like, I can't get below 88 kilos before I start actually seriously losing muscle mass. I just can't get light enough to be good at running. Yep. You have to lose a lot of weight to be a runner. Before I started lifting, when I was completely diced, completely anorexia pilled, not anorexic, but I looked anorexic, so skinny. I was 80 kilos.
Right? So, oh my God.
That was before I even began training. that is the absolute lightest I can physically get before I stop like being functional. If I got to 70, I would look like skin and bone because I'm 6'7", right? I just the scales are completely different for me and someone else who might actually look massive at 80 kilos. I just can't do that, and it's always affected my pull-ups and calisthenics. But at the same time, I don't know what unweighted things like that feel like.
You would probably be like stage ready at 85 kilo, like if you were to cut down. Yeah.
Well, yeah, in 2020 when I got completely shredded, like you could see every vein in my body. That was when I started the account, and I was completely shredded, like no fat in my body. I was 86 kilograms. I don't know what that is in pounds. That was my leanest I could physically get. And right now I'm 95 and I'm very lean. I would say if I got to 93 right now, I would be shredded. So I've probably put on about 5 or 6 kilos of pure muscle mass in 3 years. But it's very targeted muscle mass. So it's been I look way bigger than I did 3 years ago, especially as I said, with the arms, the chest, the back. I mean, the whole package has definitely increased on my upper body, which has been a big focus for me in the last few years. But yeah, if I were to get absolutely shredded, I'd be around there. But I'm not going to do that. I'm 95 right now. I'm very lean. I'm probably going to maybe I'm actually more like 96. I'm probably going to get to like 90, 95, maybe just under 95, and then I'll be happy with where I'm at. Because I don't want to start affecting my hormones, and I also want to maintain this for most of summer. Thankfully, my strength is perfectly maintained. But yeah, like that's kind of where it is for me. Like, the 90s is actually lean. The low 90s is lean. So just doing any basic form of cardio which involves my weight is very intense. Even if it's just climbing up a hill, I'll just do that very quickly. And I'm very good at climbing up hills fast. Like I've always been really good at that. So some people might not consider that cardio, because if they did it, it would not be cardio. They'd have to run. But I think I prefer closed chain movements where I'm not smashing against something. And when I'm doing a form of cardio, because I can do it lots of my weight.
It got cut off for a moment, but I think that it
can damage my bones.
Yeah, it makes sense. And I never thought about it like that, because I'm 94 kilo, and I also live in a very hilly area. Everything's up and down, and I never thought about it as a cardio, but I guess it's true. And I do like 15,000 steps average nowadays, so it's lots of walking, honestly. But I have a shitty metabolism, man. My family is just bad genes, I guess, because even though I do all of these things, I still have to eat low calories. I'm around 2,400 with 15k steps and cardio, and I'm not lean. So it is what is that. You win some, you lose some, But still, I'm going. So I started from 99 kilo. This is the weight I got up to, and I was about fat as the same fatness level as I was in 2021, but I had 96 kilo. So I gained 3 kilo of muscle, I'm sure, in these 2 years, pure muscle, which is amazing. So when I got lean, I was around 85 kilo. That was my lean, and I probably could have went to 80. That would be shredded, but I was lean at 85. I'm thinking I will go now to 90 kilos, and that's it. I will not be shredded, but I will not have anything that I can grab, pretty much. I will not have a fat that I can grab, and that is enough for me. Because I honestly feel I experience different, I guess because of the amount of calories that I have to eat when I'm lean, I just don't feel good. I don't feel, don't perform good. I'm not, and my sex drive is not there even, and that is not at shredded level. I guess I'm just built that way. So I guess staying around 90 kilo and then going up to 95 in the next bulk will be enough, and I will just keep losing those 5 kilos until I reach like 95. I think 95 lean, not lean but not fat. I think I will look my best, honestly.
Yeah. So I started lifting, as I said, at 80. In the first year, I got to 104 by the next August. All right, so I gained 24 kilograms in a year, and at that point when I was 104, I was kind of fat, actually, if I'm honest. Then the next August, I was 86 kilos. And then after that, getting from 86, I went up to 102. Then in 2021, I got down to about 95, 96, 94 kilos. And then in late 2021, I got back up to 104 or so. Then in last year, 2022, I got down to 96 kilos, then went back up to 102 kilos. So what I've been doing in the last 4 years is going up to just over 100 kilos, and then cutting down to the mid 90s or slightly lower. But each time, just gaining a bit more muscle mass and losing a bit more fat at the top. My plan here is I don't want to get fat, but I do want to be very lean at 100 kilos. And then what I want to do is my plan is I'm going to start breaking up into the 105, 110 sort of range, whilst still being reasonably like having abs. And I didn't want to, because it's very, I'm sure there are some taller listeners who will maybe appreciate listening to this, because it's a different game for people who are very tall. That sounds massive, like 105, 110 kilos, but it's not, especially when you've actually gained a bit of muscle mass. It's really not. It actually, you have to start getting used to being in the hundreds, just living like that, to be able to actually start gaining serious muscle mass. Yep. But the problem is, obviously, you can gain a lot of fat. So I've been very careful about it. I don't want to just break past that and bulk through to the point at which I'm fat. I really don't want to do that, because it can damage your metabolism over the long period, and it can also damage your health. So my plan is now this year, I'll finish the bulk at around, the cut at around 95, as I said, maybe just below. Then I will slowly lean bulk up to 105, maybe 107, which is quite a lot of weight, but I'm going to do it slowly, and I may actually see how I feel next spring and then make a decision about how much I cut. But I should, if I do this properly and manage it very well, I should put on a lot of lean mass. I'm going to bulk very intelligently. I'm going to eat more meals, and I'm also going to, just be quite intelligent about how I bulk. I actually take it quite seriously, like almost a professional bodybuilder, because
that's what I plan as well. I plan to this will be the first bulk that I take seriously, not just eat, not just eat more, but actually measurable, like 300 calories just above the maintenance, eating more, like you said, because to have more of the anabolic signals in your body, to grow constantly, to have amino acids in your bloodstream all the time. This is because I completely stopped believing in the limit of how much you can build. Look at these elite naturals that we see in our community. They completely changed their physiques in a few years just because they start training properly. They finally understood how it works, and boom, 5 kilos of muscle in a few years. That should be impossible because they reached their limit. Bullshit. So I am also looking forward to bulking. I think that this is a great time, and we both of us kind of came to understanding of our bodies, of nutrition. And I think we will look insane. I think that this podcast, and if we do another one in a year or something, I think people will actually realize that we were speaking the truth, that we were living it, and we made serious results. So I'm looking forward to it, man.
Yeah. I'm just starting a new program this week, which I've designed for myself, which is very, very intense. But it's going to be one of those programs I can take. And my plan is to really, really start putting some gains on in the next, in the next year, 2 years, 3 years. I really want to start taking it I've taken it seriously for a long time, but now I know what I'm doing. So, you can sort of work smarter and harder at the same time. So I really want to make some serious gains. And this genetic limit thing is not true. It's not real. There's no genetic limit. The only limit, the only limit you have is when you believe there's a genetic limit and you sort of think you've reached it. I think a lot of people who come from a powerlifting background as well, they believe in the genetic limit because they have a genetic limit on their strength, which they couldn't really break. And then what they think is, I can bench 4 plates, but my chest isn't that big. So, genetically, I was just never to have a big chest. The problem is that's actually an infection from the powerlifting community in bodybuilding that makes you think, well, if you get a big bench, then your chest must be big. My bench is big, but my chest isn't big. Therefore, I have a genetic limit which doesn't allow me to have a big chest. That is a really bad bit of logic, because it may just be the case that your delts overtake on your bench. Maybe your back overtakes on the bench. Maybe you're actually using your lats a lot more.
That's possible, yeah.
Maybe you're tricep dominant, and then you're taking this lift way too seriously that a whole bunch of different types of bodies have tried and got different results on. You don't know what you can get, so you got to try different lifts, you got to try different exercises, see what you connect with. You got to try moving the weight under, as I said earlier, under a different tempo, really try and contract your muscles rather than to move the weight from A to B. And then start seeing what happens, especially if you start taking the volume up a little bit, increasing the rep range, and also increasing the frequency, using different exercises. That's really when you start seeing differences in your physique. That's completely different.
Absolutely. Yeah, man. I think because like we said, we could talk about this for a long time. I think that, I guess both of you and I are qualified enough to give good information, like in terms of basics for someone. So if we will not do that now, but if you guys listening to this want Thomas and I to make a separate thing, maybe it can be also a podcast format, to give you a straight up information, like everything we know about, okay, this sets for this, these are great exercises, and then you can program it yourself. I'm sure that you and I will both be up for it, just to make this basic guide for our guys to get jacked, because a lot of these things we talk about are kind of hard to put together if someone is new to this. You need to have experience kind of to understand what we're talking about.
I would say this is an intermediate to advanced level discussion about lifting. Like, if you're a novice and you're not really serious about the gym and you're listening to this still, like, do try and get stronger. Do focus on the squat, bench, and deadlift. It's not a bad thing. See how your body reacts. Try different lifts. Sure, but you're not going to just get bigger by doing like lateral raises necessarily. You do need to take other things seriously, and we both built our bases off of standard exercises.
Exactly.
So, yeah, but you're right. I would absolutely be up for having a dedicated conversation towards the specifics of programming and how we sort of do it, because I think that we've both made a lot of different decisions. It might be nice to compare how we react to certain things, and also, there's a lot of bits of advice which we probably disagree with, which are conventional pieces of advice for other people. If you go on YouTube, you will just find certain rules which you don't necessarily need to follow, or maybe are actually detrimental to people's progress. I definitely agree with that. I made a lot of mistakes in my first few years of lifting. As I said, I was way too addicted to the conventional exercises. I thought that my arms would grow if I just got a bigger bench. I did get a bigger bench. My bench is similar to what it was in like 2-3 years ago, but my triceps and my chest are far bigger than them. My did not change the size of my arms. It's crazy. But that's that kind of stuff people don't realize. But it's because I probably could bench more if I learned the form that I used to do. But the form I do now is bodybuilding form. I don't use any leg drive. I take it all the way down to my upper chest, the barbell, all the way down to my upper chest. I stretch my pecs at the bottom, and then I fully contract the chest and the way up to a lockout, and then do that at a constant pace so that I'm not pausing at the top. Like, I'm not using breath to explode. I'm using breath to keep stability, and I'm taking my shoulders back and arching very slightly, but it's a very moderate arch to prevent my shoulders from getting damaged. This is completely, so bodybuilding form bench press versus powerlifting form bench press, is what I do nowadays. And, that means that I'll technically be weaker in that position, but if I am doing the same weights, then I'm stronger. And I'm also not really caring about strength that much either. It's about reps, it's about workload, it's about quality, that kind of, those kinds of principles instead.
Yeah, it's interesting. For example, I do both forms in my training. That's how I train, because if I train on the heavier days, for 3 and 5 reps, I will do the powerlifting form, and I got it down pretty good, being stable, stuff like that. But okay, for example, if I'm doing 10 reps, 12 reps, it's just a shift in my mind. Okay, grab the bar a little bit wider, relax my legs, and then even relax my scapula, literally. Full range of motion, and I get a great pump. So you can do both, and you can be great at both, but yeah, man, maybe we do it for the Nature Chat Warrior group for the special guest, but we'll see. I think we talked about a lot of things, but I think that we can get great points to people for listening, for training, that yeah, don't be a minimalist. Train everything and target your weaknesses. Train around
Yeah.
what you think that you are bad at. There's a way, you just need to find what works for you and just keep getting stronger at everything. Everything is important. There's no thing in extra that you just do because you do it. You do it for a specific goal that you planned for it, you programmed it, and you want to get stronger at it. That's it.
Exactly, yeah, and you can be a minimalist if you want to have a mediocre set of results. That's basically how it is. If you want to be mediocre, then you should train in a mediocre way with mediocre effort. That's the problem with minimalism a lot of the time is yeah, you can get results from it, but if you want to get the most results you possibly can, and we're not just talking about 2% extra, we're talking about 20, 30, 40%
Yep.
extra results, then you need to put in 40, 50, 60% extra work. That's just how it is. So yeah, that's I'd say that's a good way to round off a lot of our training principles, and also some of our approaches to lifting.
Absolutely, man. Well, thank you, man. 2 episodes down, 2 days, but it was definitely worth it.
It's been a marathon. It's been a
Yeah.
marathon, man.
No, but it's because we can do this all every day, pretty much. But it's easy. But no, yeah, man. Thank you for coming on. Obviously, you are someone that I hope to have in the future in many more episodes, and it's always a pleasure to talk to you. For me personally, because I always learn a lot, and I'm sure that the audience also will appreciate it. But yeah, I mean, where you can find Thomas, but still let people know where they can find you. What are you doing lately and stuff like that.
Yeah, Letters from the Ruins. I've been posting a lot of good stories recently. Occasionally posting on the account, but
Yeah, on the
enjoy
April
my
1st
stories.
only. Yeah, only trolling.
Yeah, I am enjoying trolling, but we do a little trolling. But the stories I've been putting out are informational. You need to be catching them to
Yeah,
to get the value out of my account right now. But yeah, follow me anyway. I'm always you can DM me.
yeah. Well, that's it. And yeah, thank you, man. See you later, I guess.
Cheers, man. It's good to record.
Absolutely.